art moves people. Didn't you know that?
What is that?
Look at yourself in the mirror, man.
You need to really take a moment and reflect on.
You need to go stand in the corner.
You need
and
to give
really
that advance back.
Think. Why do we need a passage on the fangirl? Any sort of description of the fangirl from YOU?
I don't know what this is.
I genuinely do not know what
idea.
This is. Rob Sheffield, sing Best of Me by the starting line. Sing it.
You can. Welcome back to Evolution of a Snake. I'm Zach.
And I'm Madeline.
And today we are not bringing you positivity, light, and rainbows. We're not.
We are not. Absolutely, positively not. I'm sorry to report. We're starting the new year off with hate.
Negativity.
With negativity, with suffering. I suffered. I don't know about you, but I personally
suffered greatly.
I
doing the task
suffered. And I paid.
That we set for ourselves. Well, also we did set this for ourselves.
$14.99.
I had an advanced reader copy of this, but I made sure to get an official version because I wanted to see if the errors were corrected, if the typos were corrected. Spoiler alert, they weren't. But all of that build up to tell you that today we are reviewing Rob Sheffield's book about Taylor Swift. It is called Heartbreak is the National Anthem, and it is supposed to be guide to how Taylor Swift reinvented the 21st century of pop music. And let me tell you, that's not what it is.
No, that didn't happen. Personally, I didn't experience that. Never felt that, never experienced that, never read that in the book.
Book is a really strong word to describe this.
I would take, honestly, if it was called A Collection of Essays About My Time with Taylor, that I would probably accept.
They can't even be called essays because they are so brief. It's like a journal. Right. It literally is like my diary about Taylor Swift musings that have not been edited or parsed for clarity or organized in any specific sort of way. The part of it that is really baffling to me is the insistence that this is some sort of authoritative document on Taylor Swift's career. To who? Let's be real.
To me. And it's also not to the strangers on the street. Strangers on the street aren't going, let me pick up Heartbreak as the National Anthem so I can learn about Taylor. But neither are diehard Swifties picking this up and be like, finally. Finally. It is. A Wikipedia article that's littered with personal anecdotes. Finally. This is what I've been looking for as a fan.
That's basically what this is. And I think off the top, we are not attacking Rob Sheffield, who is the writer of this book. He is a journalist. I'm using that word very lightly. He is a journalist for the Rolling Stone, and he writes about Taylor. He's like their Taylor Swift reporter, and he's kind of known as the Taylor Swift guy. Why is he known as the Taylor Swift guy? Because he gives effusive, glowing praise to every single thing she does. He is up her in a way that no self-respecting journalist should be about their subject. So that is the perspective that he's coming at this book from. And you know what? I have many foundational disagreements. This is not a personal attack on him. I'm sure he is a nice man who has good intentions, ? But this book really is a miscarriage of justice.
And I'm sure many of you actually are familiar with Rob Sheffield because he is the self-proclaimed Taylor Swift guy, or the Taylor Swift guy of the young
music
community.
World?
I don't know. The younger community of people.
He loves to remind us of that in the book.
He does.
He loves to remind us.
He does. He absolutely does. And we're reminded time and time again. I sat on Taylor Swift's couch, by the way.
Mostly when she's not there, which is the most baffling inclusion of the details to me. I feel as though his access to Taylor and his closeness to Taylor is touted as like an advantage of the book, but I would say that it is the main disadvantage, not only of the book, but of Rob Sheffield's entire thing that he does. And yeah, so we're really not trying to do a hit piece, but like we are the Taylor Swift podcast, and this book is supposed to be an authoritative document on Taylor Swift. I was sent an advanced reader's copy of this book. I should probably make that clear off the top. There was some back and forth about doing like a collaboration where I would, be sponsored to talk about the book. And when I went back and said, well, I can only do that if I can be honest, the conversation died down with the publisher. So I mean, these are my honest thoughts. I did receive an advanced reader's copy, but this is not sponsored. Trust and believe, when you're done listening to this, you will understand why they said, we don't want to work with you.
$14.99. That's right. I have no skin in the game because I logged on to Apple Books and I purchased my digital copy for $14.99. And
Girl.
once since I've paid, I'm a customer, and that means I get to write my. That means I get to write my. You know, when you go to the McDonald's drive-thru, and you ask for your French fries, and they hand it to you, and it's half empty, what do? You go back and you say, "Excuse me, this is not what I ordered.
This is what we're doing.
That is not what I ordered, sir." So, just disclaimer.
And also, I mean, if you love to hear us having analytical discussions about anything and everything, patreon.com/Methodologist for more. But also the Scenarios Tour, girls, you know this. Tickets are on sale. Boston, DC, LA, NYC, those are all running low on tickets. You should go get your tickets. We're going to leave the links down below. If you don't come see us, then you love this book.
Maybe they do. And that's
Maybe they
right.
do.
And that's
their right. If you also, yes, if you love this book, you are totally free to love it, to hand heart, to engage with it. It is not to our taste, but that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy it.
See, now there you go. One of these.
Do you hear that? Hand
you hear
heart.
That? You get a little hand heart.
Now let's cook. All right, Madeline, what's the first? We have a couple main criticisms of the book that we'll start with before we get into the book. So, Madeline, what is your first criticism?
So, my first overarching criticism about the book is probably the first question that I had as I was just beginning to read it and starting to kind of see the gist of where the book was starting to go. Who is this book for? Is it for mega fans like me? I don't think so. Because it's just regurgitating shit that I already know. And it's kind of about doing a big victory lap about how great Taylor is and how great her career has been over and over again. I, as a Swiftie, know that already. So it can't be just for mega fans. And then by the other token, it's often written like it's for someone who's lived under a rock for the last 20 years, or at least has valiantly battled to stay as unaware of Taylor as physically possible. It's almost like he's teaching a class about her for newbies to understand. But the thing is that people who don't like Taylor Swift aren't going to be reading this book. It almost feels like it's written about new fans, young girls who are just getting into fandom and just getting into Taylor and pop music. But then he throws in like millennial, if not boomer references to things like Lil Wayne and Bruce Springsteen and Morrissey. Things
Long
that
diatribes.
Young fans do not care about. Who is the book for? The question has not been answered. I read the whole thing cover to cover. I still don't know. Who is he talking to?
I can't think of a demographic that would enjoy this book. And I think if it's supposed to be, it seems that it's really being pitched at. We'll get into how they pitched it in just a little bit. But it seems, because it has this authoritative marketing about how it is like the book about Taylor Swift, right? Like it's supposed to explain the phenomenon. People have been asking this question over and over again. Why is the Eras Tour so big? Why is Taylor Swift so big? Why do her fans love her so much? This book does not successfully answer that question at all, nor does it even ask the question. Hence my confusion as to the title of this book, because it literally does not seek to really unpack the layers of why the Taylor Swift phenomenon has taken off. He occasionally gets like a sense of something and then immediately brushes it off or sweeps back around to a completely irritating, boring personal anecdote that makes no sense. Or he'll just drop a thought in the middle of the sentence without explaining it. And it's like, this writing is not stress tested. I'm like, where was your editor? Because half of these things are bizarre. And it can't be for the superfan because there are multiple factual inaccuracies. Easy, stupid things to get wrong, easy things to correct that have somehow slipped into this narrative and made it more bizarre. And I'll point this out as we go through it, but like the stuff that he forgets to mention or the stuff that he changes is usually in a way to make Taylor look better. And it's like, if this is the authoritative document on Taylor Swift, we need to be hearing from someone that is able to see her for what she is, not see her as the supreme goddess diva of the world who has never done anything wrong, because that's not the whole picture of her legacy. And I think it's also important to point out, I don't think we've said this, Rob Sheffield is like a 60-year-old man. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. And I think it's important also that we say, we're not doing ageism. We're not saying that like older people cannot enjoy and cannot engage with Taylor Swift. We do not want to say that. But to have a 60-year-old straight man writing the authoritative document on what Taylor Swift means to her fans is bizarre.
It is bizarre. And actually, that leads into the next main criticism. This is probably my main one. This is probably the thing that disquieted me the most as I was reading it. He does the most to relate to the girls. And it's in these really, really oddly specific ways. So, for example, him talking about how listening to Taylor as a grown man and like a father of I don't know how many kids is like her singing his diary to him talking about how he related to the way Taylor was a shy girl trying to cop an attitude, and he's felt that way for much of his adult life, putting on a brave face, acting like I had it all nailed. Like all these kind of things that really painting himself like, I'm just like you, middle school girl, is kind of like, wait a second. Because you realize, no, you're not. Because you realize you're not just like us middle school girls. When I was a middle school girl, when I was a middle school girl listening to Taylor Swift, I mean, sometimes he gets it right. He said something to the effect of, so many young fans heard Taylor tell them that girls have stories, and these stories deserve telling. That's a really good quote. But then what's bad is he always takes it to the next step, which is that, and so does my story, girls. My diary is just as full as yours is. He's constantly trying to be like, I'm one of you. And I do appreciate, to an extent, a grown man's dedication to legitimizing the work of both a young girl and now a woman, and also legitimizing the young girls who idolize her. But it's the one of us, I'm one of you behavior, and like constantly shifting the narrative away from the young girls and away from Taylor as a woman to himself that really kind of, it's like pulling the rock away and there's like a little bug underneath. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the feeling it gives me. Just like, why is that there?
It's strange. And there is also in that insistence that he has on connecting to the fan base and connecting to Taylor and being like, I understand it the exact same way that you do. There is a prominent element of I'm one of you, but I'm better than you and I know more than you because I'm like older and wiser and like I can see this for what it is and you're just experiencing it and I'm looking at your joy and I'm almost experiencing your joy better than you because like I can understand what it means, whereas you're just like completely, breaking down and crying. But I'm sitting here, I have the tissues at the EOAS tour and I'm handing them out and everybody looks at me and says I'm the greatest guy in the world. He just has this like self-congratulatory strange air about the way that he wants to relate to the fans that is creepy. And it's not creepy in the sense that he's doing something like sexual or wrong. It feels forced and it feels unnatural. That's why I say creepy, because it gives me the heebie jeebies.
It's just it ain't right. I don't really want to talk to 60-year-old straight men about Taylor Swift. I don't.
I really am not interested. And also, like, what does this book want to be? Because it has billed itself as like a very straightforward telling, like a nonfiction book, and yet it oscillates between Wikipedia summaries and completely irrelevant personal musings. Like a passage that really blew me away and shocked me was his diatribe on The Archer. And he tells this story about like how he used to listen to The Archer in Brooklyn after his mom died. And it reminded him of all these like weird feelings that he's had as like a grown man. And I was kind of like, okay, but we're not reading your diary. We're not reading my journey with Taylor Swift. We're supposed to be reading how she changed the 21st century. And if we're talking about relatability, that's not what The Archer is about. I'm not saying that it's invalid to have that response to it, but like, that's not what that is about. If you want to make the case that like Taylor has relatable lyrics and songs, you should probably try and relate to a song with a meaning that correlates with what you're feeling. Do you see what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. I know precisely what you mean. That is a chapter that I skimmed, ladies and gentlemen. That is the chapter I was skimming. I was like, I don't feel like this is any of my business.
It's a short book too. It's very short.
And it devotes
very little space to actually analyzing Taylor Swift's music.
Which actually leads us to our third overarching criticism, which is that the subtitle of this book is How Taylor Reinvented Pop Music. The fact of the matter is, he never properly lays this out in plain black and white. This book is just a collection of essays about how much he loves Taylor and how great her songs are. How did she fundamentally change pop music? He touches on some things, and he mentions on some things, but the thesis is never actually tested or proven. How did she change pop music? I know how, because I'm Swiftie. But he was writing this book as if he's talking to people who already knew all these things while simultaneously over explaining everything like we know nothing. So the question was never answered. I still don't know what his take, who, I mean, we could say whatever we want about him. He has been writing about music for a very long time, and I do think, if nothing else, he knows a lot about music history. So where was music history in this book? Other than Duran Duran and Morrissey and Boy George, which, I'm sorry,
and
have
Prince.
nothing to do with the Queen. Nothing.
It's
She's
interesting
not inspired by them.
He
so
loves
how are they
to,
related?
His main touch points, and this is so interesting to me, of like people that she's inspired by. First of all, he says no one's ever done anything like this before. She's singular. You can't compare her to anyone. And then he goes on to compare her at length to these men. And this is my point. I'm like, why are you focusing on comparing her to Prince, Duran Duran, and Morrissey? Morrissey and Taylor, I mean, do I even need to explain why they are nothing alike? Literally nothing alike. Prince and Taylor, I mean, you can talk about eras a little bit, but Prince was really about like playing with gender and sexuality and race. Taylor does not do any of that. Duran Duran just inspired like a period, a sonic kind of theme on one album. These are horrible references to put in. Where's the Joni Mitchell? He says that Taylor's a child of Madonna and then fails to extrapolate on that. But we get an essay long about how Duran Duran inspired one song on 1989 called New Romantics because he loves Duran Duran. It's like, again, I didn't sign up for the Rob Sheffield diary of how Taylor Swift is interesting to your personal muses. Let's talk about the women. Where are the women?
Let's talk about the women.
Every
time he does when he talks about Leanne Rimes, it's in the anecdote that every Swiftie knows. Throw off. Mm-hmm. He never really talks about the chicks, which are probably one of Taylor's biggest influences. He barely touches on Madonna. I don't think he ever mentioned Britney Spears.
Not once.
I don't think he ever mentioned Avril Lavigne. These are the core inspirations for the girl. And it's like, what really bothers me about it is like, if you want to talk about how Taylor changed pop music, you have to talk about what pop music was doing before her, which includes Britney Spears, which includes Avril Lavigne, which includes the Chicks, which includes Shania Twain. Where were they? He's talking about Morrissey.
Absent.
He's
and you know what it is?
Morrissey and Bruce Springsteen. What are you talking about?
Now, this is just conjecture at this point, but I really think that, to me, Rob Sheffield's first interest in a contemporary young female artist in his older age was Taylor Swift. And his inability to reference other artists that are in the same space as Taylor or like directly preceded her or were inspired by her. For example, I mean, we'll get into this, but his take on Olivia Rodrigo is completely wrong. Like, it is just wrong. It is factually inaccurate. It's also weirdly pointed. Like, it is bizarre the way that he is able to circumvent like any contextual knowledge of Taylor Swift. He mentions Beyonce, but he doesn't like bring up how she's kind of like a foil to Taylor. Like, it's those references are.
If we're bringing it up, there's a quote in this book that silenced me in a big way. And it was such a throwaway line. And I don't think he meant anything bad by it. But he said when he was at the Speak Now tour, quote, "This is probably the first time a lot of the girls in this room have seen a girl with a guitar." Not true.
Stop that. I pointed that out too. He acted like she invented the guitar. And it's like, some of us grew up listening to Avril Lavigne and Michelle Branch, whose guitars are part of their identity, much more so than Taylor Swift.
He wouldn't know that. He wasn't spinning the Spirit Room. Not like us. Not like us.
Name a single song from Under My Skin. Quickly.
They not like us. I'm telling you.
So, I mean, we return to the question of who is this book for. I think we should now look, given what we've said, keep in mind, now let's look at the official marketing copy from the publisher. So to them, this is what the book is about. An intimate look at the life and music of modern pop's most legendary figure, Taylor Swift, from leading music journalist Rob Sheffield. This next line silenced me. As Taylor Swift's preferred and most trusted music journalist, Rob Sheffield has enjoyed closer access to the megastar than any other working writer today. His unique insight has afforded him a singular perspective on Taylor's world and her impact on the world. Inspired by his years of this exclusive access and the Swiftie response to his commentary on their beloved Taylor, Sheffield merges reportage and criticism in a way that only he can. That's true. Only he could have made this book. At once one of the most beloved music figures of the past 2 decades and one of the most criticized, Taylor Swift is known as much for her life beyond her music as she is for her constant stream of hits, and most of all, how she uses the former to not only create the latter, but market and brand herself throughout the many eras of her career. At once both approachable and enigmatic, Taylor Swift has become a master of controlling the narrative surrounding her life and career while keeping fans eager to learn her every next step. In the tradition of Sheffield's award-winning Dreaming the Beatles, Heartbreak is the National Anthem, will inform and delight a legion of fans who hang on every word from Taylor and every word that Rob writes on her. Okay, so here is where we need to start picking apart the words. As Taylor Swift's preferred and most trusted music journalist, let's start there, shall we? First of all, who said that?
I didn't say it. I didn't
Did Taylor say it?
Did you say it? Did Taylor say it?
This
I
is
don't
an
think Taylor ever has said it.
No, this is an unauthorized production of a book. So I don't know if Taylor said that. Any journalist who is preferred by an artist they write about, especially an artist like Taylor Swift, who is, North Korean about controlling her narrative, is a bad journalist. Why? Because they are writing universally flattering copy about their subject. I am of the opinion that Rob Sheffield sacrifices criticism for access. And at so many points in this book, he is falling over himself not to insult Taylor and to remind the reader that he has access to her. How many times he mentions meeting her, taking credit for a decision she's made or something that happened will shock you. And also, again, this isn't a Taylor authorized biography. So who is making the claim that he's Taylor's favorite here? Is it Taylor herself saying it? There is a way to have access to Taylor while also maintaining a sense of remove. Look at what Sam Lansky did with his profile for Taylor for Time Magazine of the Year, Person of the Year. He had access and he was flattering, but you can also feel a critic's gaze in his work. Rob Sheffield is a buffoon. He is a sea lion with a notebook and a Sherlock Holmes hat on. His writing sucks, and that's actually my biggest problem with him. His bias is out loud and proud, which is fine in his slop book, but as a music critic writing for Rolling Stone, which is not the Taylor Swift Daily News publication, this relationship, or whatever it is between the two of them, whatever access that he loves to brag when it suits him, should really be made clear at the top of every piece of slop that he writes about her. Because if this relationship is as close as he'd like you to believe, for journalistic integrity, Rolling Stone really should take him off the Taylor Swift beat and put someone else on it. I mean, let's look at his reviews and compare them to other people's. He is the only reviewer that gave Torture Poets Department 5 stars. And you know what? I would give it 5 stars too, but I'm not reviewing the albums because I'm a Swiftie. You see?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And see, that's the thing. 5 stars. 5 stars from this peanut gallery. It's 5 stars.
10s across the board.
And it was refreshing, I will say. Rob Sheffield, your 5 stars to Torture Poets was refreshing, and we appreciated it. But it's the core problem with the Rob Sheffield sort of circus. He's too close to the situation to ever give a true critique. It's almost like, I don't want to use too strong of a word, but it's almost like insulting to a point.
Oh, it is insulting. It is insulting
to suggest
to the intelligence of a person.
Right. This is a real critic's gaze at the work. No, it's a stand's gaze at the work, and there's nothing wrong with the stand's gaze, but you need to start a Substack. You need to start a Substack and get off the Rolling Stone.
And this is why access is really a double-edged sword as a journalist, because what has Rob's unprecedented, because they're really in the marketing copy, they're saying that his close access to Taylor is like a unique differentiator. This is something that we should like, and it should force us to buy the book. But what does that closer access to the megastar than any other working writer today? What has that yielded? Slop. Musings about her work that are shallow, self-conscious, and entirely designed to appeal not only to Taylor Swift herself, but to her fan base. He knows the Swifties will pounce on anything, so everything Taylor does is automatically the greatest thing ever created to avoid criticism of his own work. And that's what drives me up the wall about Rolling Stone. They have basically become a member of Taylor Nation. It's the Democratic People's Republic of Taylor Swift, and he's the comms guy. The last time that he gave Taylor anything less than a 5-star review was 1989. So in 10 years, he has delivered 5 stars to Taylor for every project. And again, I take umbrage with this because if everything is amazing, then nothing is. It's impossible to discern what legacy Taylor leaves behind if we can't be honest about the varying quality of her work. It's not possible that everything she will release is the greatest thing ever created. And saying that makes all her great accomplishments look diminished. It's also not helpful to her in trying to pick apart what criticism is useful in her creative process. Saying that Midnights and Torture Poets are 5 stars, it can't be.
And of course, we might say that because, again, we are the Swifties.
We're not doing the reviews.
We are the Swifties. And that's all right. It's all right to say Midnight's 5 stars. It's all right to say Midnight's 2 stars if we wanted to, because we're here doing the Swiftyism. We're here doing the Swiftyism.
And we will say so. And the thing
and
is, it's
we
like
will say it.
when fans like us are more willing to come out here and say, hey, Midnight's wasn't her best work, then the journalists at Rolling Stone, girls, cop on, get a grip. Seriously, get a grip. Not only does he refuse to criticize Taylor, except for in this book repeatedly trashing Bad Blood, and look what you made me do while defending me in the same passage, he also, in many of his reviews, tries to preempt fan criticism by announcing to everyone what they can and can't care about. So, for example, this inane comment that he made in the 1989 Taylor's version review ignored the howls from fans about what a rush job it was. And these are the stands. The stands were going crazy about how bad it was, how little care was put into it, the botch of New Romantics, his favorite song, the botch of style. And he said, as for the non-vault re-recorded songs, many of the reviews for Taylor's versions like to note the sonic similarity between the original and the re-recording, but this feels redundant since this is Swift's exact intention, the very definition of what re-recording is. Thanks for explaining what a re-recording is. On the other hand, it's also too obvious to point out how much richer her voice sounds later. Imagine if Joni Mitchell decided to re-record Ladies of the Canyon during Mingus, and you'll realize how impressive this endeavor is. What?
Why are we imagining that? Why
I don't
want
to imagine that.
No, we don't.
It's
need
irrelevant.
That. It's irrelevant because Joni Mitchell, that's not relevant. She's not the same. This isn't the same
thing. Every reference doesn't make sense as well. He's obsessed with shoehorning references in that don't make sense. But my point about this is there was a backlash kind of brewing from the fans being like, what's this slop? Why is this so, like, Fearless was great. Red was okay. Speak Now is pretty good. Why is 1989 so botched? It was mentioned in several of the reviews, the actual other reviews of the record, that these re-recordings were worse than the others. So not only is he refusing to acknowledge that any of them are botched, he's also saying they are identical. So you're crazy if you think that they're not. But you also can't comment on how they sound different 9 years later. You can only be impressed by this. You can only be impressed and imagine how impressive this entire endeavor is. You may not critique it.
And therein lies the issue. Not to do the Rob Sheffield thing. I didn't mean to do that.
You did it. See, we do that, but we do it with
a
charm
level of aplomb
and
finesse.
humor, with a sophistication that he couldn't understand, to be honest.
To be honest.
So what's that? So I had to spill. But Madeline, what is your other criticism of this book?
So the fourth criticism of the book. The book is entirely and completely, and I cannot stress this enough, and this is like, even people who liked it when I was reading the Goodreads reviews, even people who liked this book also commented on this. There is no organization whatsoever. It's not chronological, which is fine.
No.
But then it's not arranged by level of importance. It's not arranged by category. It's not arranged by anything. It's just
by era?
him saying things to us. 2 paragraphs randomly. I really think it was like 2 paragraphs on Enchanted, and then we're talking about something else, and then he's doing his riff on All Too Well. Why? And
it's a 13-point countdown of unrelated fragment sentences.
It's like whiplash at all times. I never got like a sense of what we were talking about or why. And the titles for the chapters don't even make any sense. The first part, they're not chapters, they're parts, I should say, to be clear. The first part is called Planet Taylor, Nice to Meet You, Where You Been? Okay. So when you read that, you think, okay, so this is our introduction to the world of Taylor Swift. This is him introducing us and walking us in and showing us this whole world that she's built. No. He doesn't do any of that. He doesn't explain what Planet Taylor is. He doesn't explain why there's a Planet Taylor, if there's a Planet Taylor, or what Planet Taylor even actually is. He doesn't even mention anything about blank space. So what are you saying? And it's every single title makes no fucking sense. It blows the mind. It escapes my understanding.
It's shocking. It's shocking. It's upsetting. And like, as a book, this is a shockingly bad product. Like, literally, let's take the content out of it and let's just talk about how easy it is to follow the logical flow of the narrative. Impossible. Like, literally impossible. It's chaotic. It's disorganized. There's no thesis. It's incomplete. There are sometimes like parts that are literally 1 page, like what Madeline said. And there are multiple factual errors and typos. I'm shocked that this made it to press. I can only think that it was a rush job because I know for a fact there are about to be 10 million Taylor Swift books on the market this year. And I suspect that he wanted to be the first person out with a book. And that's why it came out in this way. Sacrificing accuracy for speed is one thing, but the claims this books make are rotted away by the piss poor quality of the writing. It is not rigorous. It is not criticism. It is not journalism. I don't know what the hell this is.
And that's the other piece of the puzzle. We still don't know who he's talking to. We
Who is
still
it
don't
for?
know. But then you know who he's talking to. Go read the Goodreads reviews and find the sycophants, the Rob Sheffield disciples. They're out there. That's who he's talking to.
There are
It's
some
kind of
of
like
them,
when
but it
Taylor,
still has a 3.6 star rating on Goodreads. There were
it's not,
the top review is like a slate. It's like, this is bad.
It's bad. It's really bad. It's not good. And I got a sense that a lot of the reviews that were positive were from younger people, which isn't to say anything bad
Not
about younger
wrong.
people. It's only to say that, like, this is perhaps for the 16, 17, 18-year-old Swifties who, you know, weren't around in the early days and they want to read about it, and they have the impression that Rob is like a really good music critic and he loves Taylor, so I do too. When I was 16, just to relate to you guys, when I was 16, I would have been up his. In fact, I probably was.
So market it as a book for teens is what I would
Right.
say. Market it as a book for teens. Market it as one of those books that you put in the bathroom at a restaurant, you know, that's just there and you can pick it up when you're on the if you want to and flick through it. That is kind of where this book deserves to be.
Not
and
pick this up when you're on the Oh my god.
If this is supposed to be a really like thorough interrogation, because that's what it keeps claiming to be. Again, I can't stress to you enough the authority that is afforded to this man. I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. And this is what the actual reviewers had to say. They were pretty nice about it, but if you listen to what they're saying, they're not giving him a good review. From the Washington Post, Sheffield approaches Swift with a winking sort of affection. He's less a scholar than an admirer and a fellow music nerd. As the journalist writing the authoritative book on Taylor Swift, do you want to be called an admirer and not a scholar? You don't. You don't.
You don't.
You don't want that. The New York Times says it's appropriate that the critic's job description has expanded to require an understanding of the fan, as that symbiotic relationship is now a defining element of the work itself. Sheffield is unabashedly a fan himself. Even when he admits that Swift's lead singles are sometimes terrible, he builds their terribleness into another expression of her mystique. And then, Sheffield is less interested in the ways in which Swift's commercial impulses might negatively impact the work itself. And that's the whole other piece. You will not find a single argument that is not made by Rob Sheffield included in this book. Because if you're doing like a document, a piece of history, you need to be fighting with arguments. You need to be like laying out your claim and making a counterclaim and being authoritative. No, he's not introducing a line of thought that is not flattering about Taylor. He won't.
And that's just the tea. And he won't do it.
So how can I take this seriously?
And I think that's a fair question.
Seriously.
And I think that's a very fair question. And again, for the millionth time, who are we talking to?
The lyric references, I had to pull some of them out specifically because they are shocking to me. Some of them are really bad. But if you can believe it, now we're actually going to get into the book. We spent half an hour slating it, and now we're going to prove to you why. Madeline, take it away with your favorite chapter.
So starting part one, Planet Taylor. Little, what is that called? Semicolon? Comma? Mm-hmm. What is that called? What is that called? Colon. Nice to meet you. Where you been? What is this chapter about? I'm asking you. What is the thesis statement of this chapter? He just begins to like list things off about her. He talks about how she's beloved and she's also hated, and that's kind of like any great star who has ever lived. That's really not unique to Taylor. And the reasons why people both love her and hate her. It's not an introductory chapter to her, as the title would suggest. It really doesn't feel like it introduces anything. It just feels like it's aimlessly talking about how people either hate her or love her. And it's like, okay, well, we knew that already because I'm a human person and I live in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's
it is
no
Taylor Swift's
one
world and we're just living in it.
Doesn't know that people love her and hate her.
Yep.
You could actually say that about anything in the world. People love and hate this thing, and everyone would go, well, yes, I'm sure there are people that love and hate that.
Skittles. I'll tell you that for free.
They do. So here's something also he does a lot that I really don't like. He focuses on making her singular. There's no comparisons to be made. No one has ever done anything like this before. And it's like, well, she does have a blueprint to follow. She for sure made her own map, but she didn't fall from a coconut tree. She exists in the context, and there's Joni, there's Madonna, there's Britney. Like, she has these forebearers, Avril, and to disconnect her from them really does her and them a disservice. It discredits like the people that like worked and trailblazed before her, and it also decontextualizes her from her peers, making it seem like she has no relation to anyone in the industry. And this is, again, my central problem with Rob. She is always the greatest, the best, the biggest, and that leaves out a lot of room for analysis. And then also he says this, but then goes on to compare her to 84 people that have no connection to her whatsoever throughout this book, and ends up, I would say, spending more time talking about other people's music than Taylor Swift's.
And that wouldn't bother me as much if it weren't for the specific people he's talking about. He
Mm-hmm.
mentions Lil Wayne. Yes, Lil Wayne.
Multiple
3
times.
or 4 times. And it's like, okay, that's not a lot in comparison to how often he mentions Bruce Springsteen or Duran. But Lil
Morrissey.
Wayne, 3
Morrissey
times?
is the one that really kept silencing me. I can take the Bruce Springsteen comparison. That one has been made for years and years. But the Morrissey one, I'm really like, that doesn't make sense. And like both Taylor and Morrissey, I'm pretty sure would vehemently disagree with that characterization.
Morrissey would fall over dead.
Mm-hmm.
Does
he
Rob
would
not
probably
know
light
that?
himself on fire.
Does Rob not know that? Does Rob
Mm-mm.
know that Morrissey is like one of the most top 10 annoying people on planet Earth? He must know that. I want to read "Heartbreak is a National Anthem," the story of Morrissey. I want to see how you spin Morrissey. I want to hear how you spin Morrissey into being like a redeemable. Let's not even get into this.
Mm-mm.
Let's not even get into this. So the chapter continues, chapter, part, whatever you want to call it. And he starts like, in every single part of the book, he will like randomly bold something. It's like a statement in bold. And it's like, why are you randomly bolding this? Is this a new part? Why is this happening? Are you explaining what? You know what I mean? Like, what is going on? But the first statement that's in bold is, there's nothing like the fan community she creates. And I was thinking in my head, okay, now we're going somewhere. We have a direction. We have a thesis. But he doesn't do it the way that I would have done it. This is how he explains the fan community. He begins telling us these personal anecdotes that he has about his nieces, about people he saw at the Eras tour, about his young family members' favorite Taylor Swift songs. And this was all in a bid, yes, to show how much Taylor means to girls of all generations and the path that she has paved for other young women to follow her, and that's all great. But how did she build the fan community?
I don't care about your nieces.
Why do your nieces love Taylor so much? Why is she so important to girls and women? Why is her fan community so extensive? Do you know why? I know why. But I'm not seeing this being written out. Probably because you are, frankly, a 6-year-old man, and you were a 30, 40-year-old man in the years that she was building this fan community, and you weren't there. I laid the bricks. I was out there.
This is the thing. There's part of it that you will never understand if you weren't a young girl or gay on the internet growing up with Taylor. And I think that Rob really does not want to accept that. He wants to be like, I get it. I'm one of you. But unfortunately, and this isn't gatekeeping, it's just, I think, a literal essential experience of really getting Taylor Swift from start to finish. You have to have been there and you have to have grown up with it.
And he did not. And he did not. Nay, he was fully formed as a grown adult. He was like my age now when he heard our song, Slam and Screen Door.
Well, and also we have spared him by talking about that prelude to the book, because I can't even talk about that. His recollections of hearing our song for the first time, encountering Taylor for the first time, I'm going to leave that out.
Well, it's like baffling to me. Well, it's like you and me have a totally different experience of seeing or hearing Taylor for the first time. It's like it was our song for you too, was it not?
That was there are very scary Rob Sheffield parallels to me in this book. It upsets me deeply.
Here's the other thing. But like the thing is, like if I compare your story of hearing our song for the first time and like seeing the music video, I remember something you said to me, like, oh, I thought she was so pretty and I thought she was so, and blah blah blah, and like all these other things. And for Rob was immediately, as a music critic, this is not anything to poo-poo on, but he was immediately thinking about like, wow, this is a great song. Who wrote this song? Oh wow, she wrote this herself. This is gonna be awesome. Like we have a new art, blah blah blah.
No, I saw Pretty Girl. Yeah. Gorgeous Room. I'm in love with you. That's
Pretty Girl, let's flock around her. Pretty Girl, let's flock around her. Mine was Teardrops on My Guitar. And I don't know why Pretty Girl, because in other cases it was Pretty Girl, let's hate on her, like Selena Gomez. But I guess Taylor was just a specific kind of Pretty Girl and Teardrops on My Guitar that I was like, you know what?
Well, she felt relatable. This was the trick and the gag of Taylor. She was like, I'm just like you, but also I'm super gorgeous, but I'm going to tell you that I'm not because I'm just like you. And that is the part of it that Rob Sheffield will never understand. Sorry.
And he continues to not understand it.
He continues to not understand it. The topic where I really am like, shut your mouth, is about the fandom. I'm like, you really need to shut up because you don't know. You don't understand it and you don't know it. You weren't there as it evolved. You observed it. You weren't in it. And that's a very important distinction to make.
Right.
So here's a quote of his like high fellow kids energy, because I think we need to have some of his voice in here so people can get what we're saying. I went to 3 straight nights of the Eras tour, and I was in the first night parking lot about 10 minutes before someone I'd never met gave me a Betty's cardigan friendship bracelet. All 3 nights were tribal ritual celebrations with the Swifties dressed to kill. So many Miss Americanas, cowgirls, mirrorballs, NYU graduation cap and gown, an Eagles tour shirt from the 70s. My niece's housemates went as a couple of wide-eyed gays. I brought extra packs of tissues, which came in handy on Sunday night when the Fearless interlude inspired a few meltdowns in my row. When Taylor began the Evermore section with 'Tis the Damn Season, the security guy came over and said, "You the guy with the tissues?" Another couple of fans were having tear duct emergencies a few rows away from me, sobbing to me, "I really love this album." Only at a Taylor show. The woman behind me who responded to the intro of All Too Well by dropping to her knees and spending the entire 10 minutes sobbing in a fetal position. You are my god bro.
We need to talk about this.
Creepy.
This has been bothering me since I read it. I'm going to talk to you about this for a second. There's you can express your glee, your joy, your sorrow, your misery at a Taylor Swift show however you want. However, making a spectacle of yourself, falling to your knees and screaming and curling up in a fetal position and sobbing, that is, I would be like, can you stop doing that? Because like I'm trying to. You know what I mean?
But Madeline, you're not the supreme Taylor Swift fan who knows everything and has experienced everything. If you were Rob Sheffield, you would just say, "You're my goddamn hero."
Can we say that bringing tissues, like several packs of tissues,
to hand out to other people? Hey kid, here's some candy. Want to get in my band? I'm kidding. That's a joke. That's a joke. But it has that energy. I'm sorry. There is something weird about it.
And to say that like that would only happen at a Taylor show, I think
the security guard never said that. The security guards don't give a f if you're crying. They give a fuck if you're trying to get on the stage. That's what they care about. They're not walking around going, "Who's got some tissues?" That's not happening. There are a lot of moments where he does dialogue, and I'm like, that person didn't say that, including moments with Taylor.
But it's like I don't think that women are only crying at Taylor Swift shows.
No.
Are we allowed to say that?
Also, people, women, men, they, thems cry at music all the time. Art moves people.
Art moves people. Didn't you know that?
Does, Rob.
The way that you said that with such disdain. Didn't you know that?
I'm getting I told you I was going to get heated. Like, this pisses me off. But anyway, continue, Madeline. What else does he get onto in this god slop chapter?
Another bolded statement. We don't know why. We don't know how. We don't know why. But he says...
After this segue about the Eras tour.
Immediately after this segue about the Eras tour. Taylor's first big public flop came at the Grammys in early 2010. My first note about this is killing me. What the f*** are you talking about? I know what he's talking about, and believe me, I was there that fateful day, just like the rest of us. We were all there. But why are you bringing this up?
Now,
what does her first big flop have to do with her fan community? What does this have to do with her not being like any other artist living today? What's this have to do with her being the biggest star in the world? What are you talking about? This is also the part of the book where he says one of my least favorite things he says in the entire book, quote, "She's on a hot streak like Lil Wayne in 2007. Like Lil Wayne said, real G's move in silence like lasagna." What is he talking about?
Absurd. I can't believe I had to read this. It is so bad.
What is he talking about?
I'm silent.
I really don't have a comment about that. And I don't understand why we're comparing to Taylor's hot streak. Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne? I don't have the words.
Here's another comment.
Anybody. You could have chosen anybody.
This also disturbed me. He calls her Blondie. I don't even like when real Swifties call her Blondie. You shut up, Rod Sheffield. You stop saying that. He said something about Blondie just makes it great showbiz when she falls on her face. Really? But according to you, she's never fallen on her face once in her life. According to you,
I'd like to start,
everything is the greatest thing ever made.
I'd like to start a support group for people who have never referred to her by that word. who would never refer to her by that word and take umbrage.
We're starting it. We're doing it.
Where's the support group for people like us who don't do that? I don't want to do that. Who's Blondie?
I don't know her.
Not on my watch. Not on my watch. All right.
Any other comments about this chapter?
No further comments about part 1. Straight into part 2, which is entitled "I Love You, It's Ruining My Life." So when I read this title, I kind of thought like, oh, this is going to be about how much he loves Taylor and how crazy it is to be a Taylor Swift fan. You know, this, that, and the other thing. No. The first thing he says is he begins reiterating the thing about the different kinds of pens that write the different kinds of songs. And I was like,
word for word, reprinting it. Word
for word. And sometimes I think to myself, Rob, you are the cringiest human being to ever live. And then I'm reminded that Taylor is, in fact, Queen Cridge. And I just have to say, you know what, Rob, you carry on. Do what you're doing. Because I really can't fault you for this. He does say quill pen songs are his favorite, which really didn't surprise me. But the one part about this chapter that I actually really liked, it's probably one of my favorite parts in the book. He uses this Andy Warhol quote to describe how Taylor uses writing to understand and use her own experiences in her writing. Andy Warhol said, "If there's ever a problem, I film it, and it's no longer a problem." And I actually thought that was like a really insightful comment and like a really insightful reference to kind of relate to Taylor.
It was obviously very hard for him to get that together and put it in the copy. So congratulations, Rob. You had a good thought. But I just can't with the constant speaking and lyric references thing he does. He does it just to do it, and there's no intention behind it. And it's really annoying. And if you're a person that isn't intimately familiar with Taylor's like catalog, you're going to read this and be like, why do I care? Okay, here's something he said. Taylor has hit songs called Shake It Off and You Need to Calm Down. She is utterly incapable of shaking it off, calming down, finding closure, skipping the conversation, forgetting you existed, or making a long story short.
It's like he just wants us to know he's listened to Taylor before. It's like, by the way, guys,
get it.
I know the songs.
We get it. We get it. Shut up. Oh my God, it happens so many times.
It's literally the whole book. There's not a part that goes by where he's not doing it. And he does it at like inappropriate moments too, and we'll get into that. We'll get into that. We will get into that. But the part continues, and he does another bolded statement, and it's another completely random statement. One of the first things you discover in the Taylorverse, there are no accidents. Okay. So now is this a book about teaching us all about the Taylorverse? Are you going to give us a map to the Taylorverse? Are you going to explain to us how Taylor has built her lore and built her own universe? Well, no. In fact, this is just going to be a diatribe about how everything Taylor does is an Easter egg. And when she uses a word, this is a real thing that he says in the book. When she uses a word like marvelous twice in 2 different songs, that's not just a coincidence of her liking the word marvelous. In fact, that is a direct connection between Starlight and the last great American dynasty, if you can believe it. Maybe she just likes the word marvelous.
There also isn't a connection between those two songs.
No, there isn't. They have nothing to do with one another.
There are better examples of what he's trying to say. There are better examples of what he's trying to say, and this is because he doesn't get it, because he doesn't understand
it. Because he doesn't know. Because he hasn't been doing the education. He stops talking about this abruptly, and then he goes on to talk about how she studies the songwriting greats. Okay, that's all well and good, but what's that got to do with the first thing that you discover in the Taylorverse? And then he's randomly talking about how Taylor is related distantly to Emily Dickinson. And then he begins drawing random connections between things Taylor has said in Instagram posts and things that Emily Dickinson said in old letters. And he knows about this thanks to the help of the Emily Dickinson's Twitter Stan account he found. What are you talking about? Do you remember this part? I can't remember what the app, but it was like
this is
Dickinson
real.
Says.
This is literally real.
You're referencing a Twitter?
He devoted pages to this.
Pages. And this is not a joke. No. I find it interesting how Taylor is related distantly to Emily Dickinson. I wonder what Emily Dickinson would... It was like...
Who cares? Who asked?
Talking
21st century. She's dead.
It's a piece of trivia. It's a piece of trivia.
It's not a revealing insight.
Then he does, and he'll say this a million times in the book. He will say, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but I was invited to a Reputation secret session.
But he's not joking.
No,
I'm
he's
joking
serious.
when I do it. He's being dead serious.
He's dead serious. And he says it over and over and over again throughout the entirety of the book. And he starts talking about how Taylor is a nerd who knows a lot about music history. And he knows this because of conversations they'd had with one another. Okay. Thank you for filling that in. And then he has an anecdote. I made a really bad pun to Taylor, and she did a fake laugh. And it was a bad joke. It was joke. Like, she was wearing a brand new jersey, and he said, "You're wearing your new jersey in New Jersey," like the state. And she was like, ha 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 ha. Just like the typical girl, fake laughing at a man's joke. Been there, done that. You can see that in bars across the United States of America. It is not interesting.
We don't need to read it in Heartbreak is the National Anthem. We don't need it there.
So then he starts talking about how he constantly changes his ranking of Taylor songs when new ones come out. And I'm still searching for the point. I still don't know. And then
where's the Taylor verse? Where's the Taylor verse gone? Where did it go? There.
But this part is when he thinks that he alone is the reason why Taylor started to realize the importance of All Too Well. He tells this anecdote on the Reputation tour. And it's like, if you knew anything, you'd know that her taking All Too Well seriously started way before the Reputation tour.
You are a rat. You are a rat that knows nothing.
Well, it's just evilness to claim responsibility for something like that.
It's low down and dirty. That's actually what it is.
It's low down, dirty behavior.
Down and dirty. I mean, okay, this makes me so annoying. This makes me so annoyed. He says, this is what he says about that interaction. On opening night of the Reputation tour in 2018 in Glendale, Arizona, she warned me backstage that I had a surprise. I added All Too Well to the set because of you. She said, it's #1 on your list. You changed my mind about that song. She didn't say that. You convinced me it was more than just a Red Tour song. My trusty poker face must have failed me because she looked concerned and asked, is it okay I told you this? She sang a solo acoustic guitar version that night. It was rare. I was there. But lest you get delusional about my influence, she immediately axed it from the set. That was just her wild card spot and played it only a handful of times. Meanwhile, she did Bad Blood every night, just in case you've got her confused with somebody who listens to opinions. Okay. So
you wanted her to take Bad Blood off the set list for you? Some of us enjoy it.
I hate you. And Bad Blood should have said no was the serve of the century. And if you had a business that you cared about, you would know that.
Right?
He also doesn't understand anything about All Too Well, clearly, because that lore started building during Red, as in it wasn't even going to make it onto the tour. And then the fans badgered her into playing it live and putting it on the set. Then we badgered her into doing it at the Grammys. That's when she realized how powerful it was. She wrote an Instagram post, fact check that, Rob Sheffield. Then she's bringing it back all the time. He goes on later to say that she never performed, like All Too Well was so terribly upsetting to her that she never performed it after the Red tour until the Reputation tour to like talk about how he galvanized her to change her mind. She played it on the 1989 tour, a year after the Red tour ended, 2015. She did it All Too Well live. She also did it Super Saturday Night before Reputation even came out. It's like, you don't know anything.
He really thinks she said that to be nice to you, by the way.
Yeah, she made that up.
Just like when she laughed at your bad joke. Just like when she laughed at your New Jersey joke.
I don't even believe she said that.
Heard of it?
I don't believe that.
It's like playing off of this belief that maybe she'd forget what she says to people. I mean, I think she forgets what she says to people. Do you remember that anecdote that somebody had? Where they were like,
you convinced me it was more than just a Red tour song. Didn't she already at this point have that AT&T performance where she's playing the piano and she gives a whole speech about how All Too Well is like completely different for her? Also at Super Saturday Night, she gave a speech about how it's now a happy song for her. Like this is just not true. Really, this is why I don't think she said it, because that's actually factually wrong.
It fits his narrative. It fits his narrative. It's like
journalist.
The total blinders onto the reality. Like, you didn't do anything, sir. You're a little list that nobody cares about. I remember I was at the airport and I saw the Rolling Stone, because they printed it out as like a magazine, the 50 best Taylor songs of all time. It's a magazine.
What a waste of paper.
And Mason was like, "Oh, look, the 50 best. Don't you want to get that?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me?
Are you out of your mind?
Are you out of your mind? No, I don't want that slop. Because
I can get some toilet paper and tack it up to my wall. No problem."
And that's that on that. No, Rob Sheffield, you are not the reason that Taylor discovered All Too Well was important. Believe it or
No,
not,
you're
the
not.
legions
Believe
of
it or not.
girls. The legions of girls and
Yeah.
women in gays. Not
Who
you.
experienced gaslighting and manipulation. Maybe they're the ones that
Maybe
actually
they're the
raised
ones.
attention to the fact that it was a good song. But thank you.
Thank you. Moving on. Moving on. Part 3. This is titled A Portrait of the Artist as Young, Loud, and Not Especially Great at Calming Down Woman.
This is so embarrassing. This is so
But at least it gives us a direction and a
humiliating.
point. Finally, we have a reason. Finally, there's a purpose for the chapter. Okay, so one of the quotes in this that really, really silenced me. Oh, the agonies and ecstasies of being a Taylor Swift fan. What do you know about it? You weren't there. He wasn't there. Zach, he wasn't there. He literally wasn't there.
You weren't there. You wouldn't get it. You're the one giving us tissues. You are the janitor cleaning up our tears. You're not the one having the mental breakdowns.
But then, and he says one of my second favorite things he says in this book, quote, I've spent an hour on the Q train each way just to hear Coney Island with the sun going down. What the f*** did you just say to me, man? Did you just say that you, in your 50s, in your mid to late 50s, got on the Q train just to go to Coney Island like a fangirl to hear Coney Island?
And what did you get from that? Why at sunset specifically? What did you get from that? What was revealed to you about that?
Nothing.
Going to the Black Dog, I get it. I understand that. Going to sit on a random bench in Coney Island and listen to a B tier Evermore song. Get up on your good foot.
Get up on your good foot. Your stick's not even touching the ground. Your stick's not even touching the ground. And then another quote. This part of my notes is just like quote after quote after quote that silenced me. Another quote. I have wondered if the father who leaves in Cardigan is the careless man who leaves his careful daughter in mine, and if he's even the same father who sticks around and haunts his daughter's miserable childhood in Seven.
So what are you saying? Say what, this is my thing. It's like, say what you want to say. What you want to say is Scott Swift a bad dad? That's really what you're trying to say, but you're too scared to like piss Taylor off. So you don't want to say that. So instead we're doing riddles.
Nobody knows what you're talking about.
By the way, I don't have that opinion. I don't draw those connections between those three songs. They are separate thoughts. They're from completely different eras. Relating something like Mine to something like Cardigan is insane. I mean, there are so many ways in which this is a flawed premise, but the most annoying thing is how cagey he's being about it. Just say what you mean.
Well, and it's also like, I really think that this belief that everything that she does, there are no accidents in Swiftyland, like all that kind of stuff is like, that's sometimes things are just coincidences, man.
They are.
Sometimes
You're
it's
60.
just a coincidence.
You should know that.
It's just a movie. Yeah. You're an adult. You should know that.
Literally.
So this is a telling moment in this book. When at first he's talking about how Swifties are full of stories. He says that Swifties have their favorite songs, and Swifties can relate to Taylor so well. He's talking about Swifties this, Swifties that. And then he just casually switches to using the word we.
No.
We keep going back to these songs. We go to these songs because they tell our stories. We tell our secrets to these songs.
Not my Rob Sheffield.
We, us, our. It's like, who's in that group with you? Because it's not me.
Oh, no. Don't.
I'm not with you, man.
Group us together.
I'm not with you. I'm not with you.
We are not like-minded.
No, we. We don't have the same connection in Taylor Swift songs. And for the record, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with everybody like getting something different out of a song. Like that's not, you don't have to be a 16-year-old girl to relate to a Taylor Swift song. That's not what's being said here. What's being said is like inserting yourself into like the narratives and like life stories of like the girls and women.
The most feminine body of work of all time.
It's just kind of, hello kids, how do you do?
Stop colonizing
hello
me.
Kids.
Yeah, don't colonize me.
You gotta get out of
this is a sovereign nation, and you are coming in here and you are planting your flag, and we are the locals, and you are a foreigner, and I'm sorry, but go back to where you came from.
You have to go back. You can't come in here.
Your boat's there. You have diseases that we don't want to get. Please leave us alone.
He says, Quote, there are 26 isn't it's in Delicate, and I tragically hear myself in every single one of them.
This is so
What are you
embarrassing.
talking about?
As a 60-year-old man, when you wrote that, did you not feel embarrassed? Really is my question. That is something a 14-year-old girl would say. And if a 14-year-old girl would say it, I would say, yes, queen. I would say, slay. I'd say, absolutely. That's exactly what I'd expect you to say, as you were. When I hear it from a 60-year-old man, I go silent.
No. This was the moment where I said we have to stop him at all costs. This is probably the most egregious factual error in the book. And I don't know what he was thinking. This is going to gag you. When I say this to you, you're going to pass out. He thinks that Long Live, the song, was written about a boy she dated.
Die.
He explicitly says Long Live is about a guy. A guy? Oh,
what
no,
guy?
no. Where were
what
you?
Guy?
Did you not do your due diligence? You didn't do the puzzle? You didn't solve the puzzle? It says, for you. On the Speak Now tour, which you claim to have been at. You claim.
Oh, allegedly.
You claim you were there. She says,
you were eating
this
your dinner off the
song
clean
is
urinals in the bathroom.
about you. It's about her band, and it's about the fans. What are you talking about, boys? Who's boys?
I can't. This
That
it has silenced me in a major way. And you know what? That's an easily Googleable thing. You Google what is Long Live about, and that'll come up.
Oh, we need Google.
If you're the Taylor Swift expert, you have absolutely no business saying that Long Live is about a boy in the authoritative book on Taylor Swift.
It was shocking.
Wrong. That's not a difference of opinion. It's wrong.
There's no truth to it. I don't even if I listen to the song,
I can't make it about that. It sounds, it's like an anthemic song about a group of people. When I was younger, I was thinking about my drama production play that I did at school. I was like, look at us, we did it. We did all those performances. Long live, blah, 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 blah. I wasn't thinking about boy.
No boy. Do you see what I'm talking about? See, now you guys see what we're talking about. Now you're starting to see the clear picture. Okay?
The one good thing he said in this chapter was her approach to writing songs is, this is my first song, my last song, she seems to say. I'm not holding back a thing for any next song. This is it. But then he goes on to say, to suggest like another like math collaboration. And he goes, why do we ever believe a word she says? And I hate this train of thought that she can never be taken at face value, that she can never be believed, because that is the train of thought that goes directly into Gaylorism. And he kind of brushes up against that numerous times, such as the completely irrelevant non sequitur about Carly Kloss. That silenced me.
It goes on for a long time
book.
too.
Too much too long. Spends longer talking about Carly than talking about Look What You Made Me Do.
That's what I was just about to say.
Absurd. It's absurd. Other than to say he hates it. Okay. I can't.
And he's wrong, by the way.
I need to take a breath.
And he is 100% wrong.
He's wrong, as he is many times. All right, Madeline, we're only at part 4.
Part 4. We gotta press the fast forward button. All right, part 4. Early days. Please picture me in the trees. Why are we talking about this? How did we get from there to this? I still don't know that. So then, I still, to this day, I don't know what this chapter is about. It's just a bunch of random details strung together. He tells us that the number one song at the time was Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire when she was born, when Taylor was born on December 13th.
What does that have to do with anything?
And then he tells us that Andrea and Scott married the same day that Rihanna was born.
This is meth.
Why does anybody need to know that?
He's counting the tiles on the Air's tour screen. That's what this is.
So then he just starts literally like listing facts. She got a Leanne Rimes CD, and Taylor got a Leanne Rimes CD and became obsessed with country. She was a horse girl, etc., etc. She was a loser in school. But I did think it was interesting how he pointed out how she, quote unquote, dropped the narrative of being a popular cool girl almost immediately. And he referenced the A Place in This World documentary from debut era, where it's really plain as day. She was liked. in high school. She was walking
Popular
in with her
girl.
choker on, her Starbucks,
Blonde
sucking on her
hair.
Starbucks, blonde
Mhm.
hair, flirting with a boy up at the whiteboard, and like all of a sudden we're not talking about that anymore. And the narrative is I was a complete
Bullied.
loser.
Everybody hated me.
I was a loser, etc., etc. And this is what he says word for word. Was she authentically shy in high school, where she spent just 1 year? Did she really go through the tribulations of adolescent rejection? But does it really matter? Bruce Springsteen didn't even know how to drive when he wrote Thunder Road. Tupac was a ballet dancer and drama student in high school, not a gangster. But Taylor's always mythologized her high school student outcast days. Again,
if you do anything, you know that she was bullied in middle school, not high school. That's actually the foundational experience that she's referring to. She was bullied in middle school, and in high school, things got a little bit better. That's when she wrote our song. She's feeling happy again. The outside, a place in this world, etc. That came earlier. If you had a business that you cared about, you would know that.
But again, Tupac, Bruce Springsteen. We couldn't have named anybody
For
else.
What? Please picture me in the trees with Tupac and Bruce Springsteen. What are we doing there? Why are we doing that?
Interesting. This is also okay. So this is funny because I had this quote on my bedroom wall. I had this magazine.
This one.
It was one of my all-time favorite. It's the Cosmo Girl. Back when there was a Cosmo Girl, that was discontinued, but Cosmo Girl, and it was the one where she's in the lace dress on the cover, and then she has a little hat on in one of the pictures, and it's in New York City. I remember it. And he tries to cook her for the irony, quote unquote irony, of saying, I remember seeing girls crying in the bathroom every Monday about what they did at a party that weekend. I never wanted to be that girl. And he says, but you are that girl. You epitomize that girl who cries in the bathroom. But that's because he doesn't understand what she was fundamentally referring to, like in between the lines. In between the lines, she's saying, I never wanted to be the girl who lost her virginity at a party over the weekend, or kissed a boy, or did something she wasn't supposed to do because she was having too much to drink.
She wasn't like that. She actually wasn't
about
like that.
Crying in the bathroom. It was about what she did to wind up crying in the bathroom. And you wouldn't get that.
The point that he wants to make would be better made if he used You Belong With Me as an example. If you use the best example of Taylor being like, I'm this ugly girl, ugly duckling, is when she has glasses on in You Belong With Me and she's a hideous beast and she takes the glasses off and then suddenly she's Princess Fiona before she became Shrek's wife. That is a good example of literally illustrating to the people how, okay, you're saying that you're this dejected, like loserish girl, but really you're a pretty girl. You're a skinny, blonde, tall, gorgeous girl with like very good social skills. You're not this like outcast nerd. You can talk about that tension in that context, but he's trying to apply that logic here and it doesn't make sense because he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, he was never the girl. He was never the girl walking into the bathroom saying, I don't want to cry. He was never the girl crying. He
was never the girl at the party.
He wasn't there. And that
it was rare. You weren't there.
Period.
Well, now we're getting to the worst part of the book.
So this part is called, he doesn't call it part 5, he calls it track 5.
Oh, well.
The Ballad of All Too Well. And then he starts counting down from 13. At first I was like, okay, maybe this is 13 anecdotes about All Too Well. I still don't get what the fuck he was talking about.
I don't know what this is.
I genuinely do not know what
idea.
This is. So he's talking about how he gets one time he was very upset. And he was like, to not be upset, I'm going to listen to Dear John and All Too Well to help me process my upset and my grief. And that kind of quieted me in a big way.
Oh, absolutely. What do you know about Dear John?
Well, he needs to be listening to his beloved Morrissey. Turn on Morrissey. Turn to Morrissey.
How long
you gotta
gone?
Go to Morrissey. Yeah.
And if a double-decker bus, do that. Don't be doing. No. You should have known.
No, yeah, I mean,
Dear John is especially a weird one to pick up on. Like, that's what I'm talking about where it gets weird. It's like you can pick another song. You're picking the song that is like very specifically about an older man dating a younger girl and a specific kind of pain. That's not a general pain. Like, even Last Kiss I would take as kind of a more general pain about like missing someone. Right. Dear John is a specific experience.
Well, All Too Well, too. I mean, when All Too Well first came out, I'll give the bone. Like, it wasn't really clear how much of that was really about the age difference, and All Too Well 10 kind of added a lot more context to it as she processed it, I think, over the years. But they're both kind of the same. Like they're both similar in their subject matter.
That's why they're track fives, as he says.
Right. So then he starts talking about how nobody caught the Barbara Stanwyck reference in the All Too Well short film. There's a Barbara Stanwyck movie. I can't remember which one he references, but there's a scene in that movie where it's pretty much exactly what happens at the end of the All Too Well 10 music video. He's wearing a scarf. He's looking in sadly through the window. Happens in a movie. I don't even think the Barbara Stanwyck movie is the only movie that's ever happened in. I've seen that scene in many a movie. So for all we know, this isn't even the movie she's referencing because it's from 1937. And say what you want, I've seen a few movies myself, and I've never seen that movie, and I don't think Taylor
no one's watching it
either. And nobody is, and nobody caught that because the people that you're speaking of, sir, are girls and gays between the ages of literally 5 years old.
And you speak as though you are smarter than them. And this is the issue. This is the problem. It's not nobody just, they didn't notice it. It's, I was the only one that did.
Yeah, because you don't get out of here.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make it. You're not understanding it better than anyone because you have caught this reference. That's clear. That's clear because you can't write a coherent essay about it.
I did kind of like when he was talking about Stevie Nicks' velvet jacket that she lost and like the importance of the scarf and the importance of the jacket. But then he said this. But
these are obvious points as well. These are points that really have been like hammered home to death.
And then he says this, quote, "The lost girls of rock and roll, they remember the sacred relics that get left behind. Nobody else will understand." And it's like, are you saying that you understand? Are you saying that you're a lost girl of rock and roll? What are you saying?
Is Taylor Swift a lost girl of rock and roll? I wouldn't characterize her as such.
I wouldn't say that. I don't know. I mean, Stevie Nicks and Taylor, sort of BFF, a sort of like mentor-mentee kind of relationship there that's been going on since 2010. I said this to Zach. Stevie Nicks even continued to speak highly of Taylor after the disastrous performance on the Grammys. She said, "No, I'm a stan."
She's been queening out.
And I know she choked. I know she choked. That's okay. It happens to the best of us. It happens to the best of us.
It happens to the best of us. He also calls her a child of Madonna, but like refuses to extrapolate on that. And I'm like, okay, we can extrapolate on how Bruce Springsteen and Tupac are sitting in the trees with Taylor Swift, but we can't talk about how she's a lost daughter of Madonna, the basically godmother of modern pop. I mean, come on. And this passage really irritated me because this is where he so confidently displays his lack of knowledge. All Too Well isn't a hit, not even a single, definitely not one you hear on the radio, just a deep cut cherished by her most ardent fan. After the Red Tour, she won't sing it live again for years, except she did. The Red Tour ended in 2014 and she sang it in 2015 and then she sang it again in 2017. So what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
We still don't know.
We don't know.
We still don't know.
Who's it for? We don't know. What's it about?
We don't know. We don't know. Okay, on to part 6, entitled The Fangirl. And I said immediately, I didn't even read it. I hadn't even read it yet, and I was already mad. I just said, oh, brother, this guy stinks. That's right. Why do we need a passage on the fangirl? Any sort of description of the fangirl from YOU?
He does this a lot, you know.
He does it a lot.
He does this a lot.
He does it a lot. So, there were parts of this I liked. There were parts of this that I disliked. One quote that I really, really liked is, he said, it's a short one, but I found it impactful. He says, she loves girls who love music, and she changed the world to make room for them.
Well, yes.
I thought that was very poignant, and I thought that was very true, and I thought that that was a really, really good stopping point. That energy and like that, what she does for the girls out there in the world, and she has literally, and it's true, he doesn't explain why or how, which we could get into that a little bit, but I know it's true, so I'm gonna let him cook. She did literally change how we view artists and how girls could contribute to music further. That's literally the truth. As somebody who's writing a book, he probably should have extrapolated upon that a little bit more, but
just a touch.
And I think that this particular part could have been a really good essay about fan culture and about how Taylor has built relationships with her fans, and it's like nobody had ever done before. And I did enjoy when he was talking about Phoebe. He uses her as kind of like the benchmark, the best example of an artist who was inspired by Taylor. And she really is perhaps one of the best examples we have of a girl who learned from Taylor to really be a lyricist, and that she can make music, and that her stories mattered even when she wasn't a grown-up yet. But this, yeah, it was 3 pages long, and that was on my phone. So that it probably is even shorter in actual
pages
book form.
Devoted to Morrissey and to Duran and to your annoying, boring experiences sitting on her couch, wondering if you're touched Gigi Hadid's ass. We have that. But the actual, juice, the meat of the matter is not interesting. There is a semi-interesting rumination on women running the music business here. He includes a quote that says, "Women make show business. Men contribute to the thing, but women actually make show business happen." And he goes on to tell us an interesting story that we all know about how when Taylor met Leanne Rimes, she remembered Taylor from her letters, and what an impression that level of fan service left upon her. And that would have been an excellent place to dive into the concerted effort that Taylor has made to develop the most intense parasocial relationship with a fan that any celebrity has ever had. That is a point where we really need to go further there. And the reason why he won't is because when you get into that subject, and this, we're talking about allegedly 21st century pop, right? How Taylor reinvented it. The fan part of it is huge. We can't get into that because one, then we have to talk about her ceaseless drive for commercial success and her overconsumption, her overproduction, that kind of thing. And also we have to talk about how evil her fan base can be. We have to talk about how your fan base is a weapon that can be used against other people. But we don't want to actually talk about how Taylor Swift changed 21st century pop. We just want to say that she did
it. We want to say rainbow. We want to say heart. But we don't want to get into the nitty gritty. Okay? We don't. And the nitty gritty. The next part
sucks so bad.
So part 7, Fearless. Okay, so we're talking about the album. His diatribes, it's like, okay, if you want to talk about Fearless, you could have spent a little bit longer on it.
Just sit there and talk about it. He does this with Reputation too. It's like, talk about the album. Shut up about everything else.
He doesn't do it though. It's just like anecdote. However, he does, one of my favorite parts in the book, one of my favorite quotes in the book is right here. This is probably like one of the most important statements that he makes about Taylor and the work that she makes. And I think it's one that I personally had seen other fans pulling from the book before I'd read it. And I thought that it was true. And I think that he's right about this. So these songs aren't really about boys at all. They're about girls, the topic Taylor has pursued more relentlessly than any other artist in history. She's written more songs about girls than anyone, even Paul McCartney. And like Paul, she has nearly no interest in male characters. The boy in a Taylor song is usually just a mirror for a girl's experience of self-discovery and self-figuration. He is the blank space where she writes her name. Fearless is full of these vibrant girls she spent her life creating. These are the moments when I enjoy what he does. When he writes accurately about what Taylor does for girls and women and how her storytelling reaches a particular group of people who don't always get to be taken seriously.
Out of it.
Yeah. But then when he starts going, we, us, I, and even though this particular quote is good, and I do think that this is true about Fearless, he doesn't make any other interesting comments about the music.
He never substantiates it. It's like, I would love to see that quote applied to, okay, well, what are these vibrant girls that she's creating? Where do we see them on Fearless? What songs do you see her most like ardently casting a boy as a secondary character and making her experience the dominant one? Because that is what Fearless was about, and why it was so groundbreaking and why it's probably one of her best albums, is because of what symbolically it did for young girls. And it's like, okay, so you get it, but you don't want to really get into the lyrics. You don't want to talk about the music. You don't want to talk about the process of creating it. Like, there are so many things that could have been discussed here that just get dropped in favor of stupid that comes up elsewhere in this book.
And that's on period. And it's like every time when we talk about Reputation, when we talk specifically about Enchanted, you're going to do a whole chapter about Enchanted, and it's going to end up, you said nothing about Enchanted.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, some way. It happens again and again.
Why do it?
So part 8 is called Everybody Loves Petty, Everybody Loves Cool. It's a play on the Lucky One lyric, and he's talking about petty Taylor and times over the years where Taylor has been petty. This chapter is all right because at least it has a narrative and like a point. So he tells the anecdote about John Cleese. Many of you will remember this from the 1989 era. This is when she came out as a feminist. So obviously she was going to start like, gagging the girls to the best of her ability. she gagged
did what
John
she could.
Cleese, and like John Cleese made a comment that was like, "Oh, cats are kind of blah blah blah, kind of like women." And Taylor was like, "Oh, we don't want to do that." And the audience claps and cheers, and everybody laughed and blah blah
Girl
blah.
boss.
I'll be honest. Well, I was radicalized. I said, "You see how she's getting him? You see how she's getting him?" I thought that this was feminism embodied. I did.
It was.
I did, and it was. And it's still, it kind of now, I feel like there's this kind of like, ooh, cringe about like something even as simple as that. It's like, well, he was kind of making like sweeping generalizations about women as like an old white dude, and like maybe she was right to be like,
we
can
should
you shut
just
the
we
fuck
could
up?
just check someone on that just quickly.
Maybe
like we might as well
kind of be checked. But then the nonsense starts.
No,
I don't know
this is
why.
wrong. This is so wrong.
This is so wrong. He says, in his opinion, his professional opinion, as a writer for Rolling Stone, that the reason Taylor and Olivia are no longer on speaking terms or whatever is going on there is because Olivia sent Kim Kardashian a copy of her record with a note that says, "I love you."
I think we need to read his exact words on this because I find his wording of it to be malicious and maligning towards Olivia Rodrigo's character.
Let's let the Rodrigo take center stage. Take it away.
Defend my girl.
This is more offensive to you.
Rob Sheffield, some of her enemies started out friends. First of all, they are not confirmed enemies. So, we know there's something going on between them, but like a Taylor Swift enemy is Kanye West. It's not Olivia Rodrigo. Let's start there. Some of her enemies started out friends. In May 2021, there's no cozier pop couple than Taylor and the up-and-coming Olivia Rodrigo about to release her brilliant debut album, Sour. Okay, no cozier pop couple than the two of them. She did a TikTok, and Taylor commented on one of her posts. I wouldn't have called them cozy at this point in time. Rod calls Swift her hero, but anyone can hear that in her weepy ballad, Driver's License. Okay, now this is mark 1. Okay, that's malignment 1. When she posts next to Taylor on the US iTunes chart, "I'm in a puddle of tears," Taylor replies, "I say that's my baby and I'm proud." They meet in person in mid-May, snuggling for a photo. Taylor puts a ring on her baby's finger. Her baby, why do you write like this? The kind of ring she wore on Red. In fact, it was the ring that she actually did wear when writing Red. "She is absolutely the kindest individual in the whole world," Rodrigo gushes. "She gave me this ring because she said she wore one just like it when she wrote Red, and she wanted me to have one like it. Everybody loves Taylivia. This one is forever." Okay, so now there's a logical leap. He goes, "Yet for some reason, Rodrigo sends a personalized copy of her album to Kim Kardashian. I just adore you," her note says, "sending you and your fam so much love." Kardashian shows her support by posting the note on social media on May 28th, which is a Friday. By sheer coincidence, Taylivia instantly goes from "put a ring on it" to "see you in court" with no explanation from either side. He is making it seem as though Olivia Rodrigo intentionally betrayed Taylor by sending Kim Kardashian a copy of her album.
And nobody feels that way but him. As
Not
I
a
said,
single
Sabrina
person
Carpenter
in
did a
this
Skims
world.
campaign. Lana Del Rey did a Skims campaign.
Noted
and nobody
best
sent
friends.
cease and desist to them.
No.
And nobody
They
is
didn't
ceasing
get it.
and desisting
They
to them.
didn't get
Nope.
a cease and desist.
To paint Taylor, it's also like a really negative portrayal of Taylor. Like, you're gonna go catastrophic over nothing.
It makes more sense for it to be about business.
And everybody loves petty Taylor.
Well, that's why he wants to frame it like
Taylor.
this.
That's like psycho Taylor. If that's what you really think happened, that's crazy. Crazy.
It's crazy. And I think it's very uncharitable to Olivia Rodrigo, obviously. He says, all anyone can do is speculate. Yeah, that's literally exactly what you're doing. The thing to do here, if you wanted to bring this up in the book, you have to actually explain what happened. Like he just says, "see you in court," and he doesn't explain what happened with Cruel Summer and Deja Vu. That is the real answer to why they don't speak.
Yeah.
The real answer to why they don't speak has nothing to do with Kim Kardashian. Rolling Stone asks Rodrigo point blank if she's beefing with Taylor. "I don't have beef with anyone," Rodrigo says. "There's so many Twitter conspiracies. I only look at alien conspiracies and conspiracy theories." Now here's where it gets insane. In February 2024 at the Grammys, Taylor gets up to dance when Olivia sings Vampire, inspiring hopes for a revival of their Taylivian Rhapsody. Swift's next album has a few Barb songs about Kardashian. There's also a song about alien abduction.
What are you implying?
Are you trying to say Down Bad is about Olivia Rodrigo?
I can't have him? For a moment I knew cosmic love. Olivia Rodrigo?
Speechless.
Because I was in love?
That also wasn't her next album after the Cruel Summer, like, credit fight began. So if it was going to be anywhere, it was going to be on Midnights. This
and nothing happened.
Is
well, he also buys
slop.
into the slop that The Grudge is about Taylor.
Oh,
that is
yeah.
the most stand brain nonsense I've ever heard in my life.
He goes into that.
Yeah.
Well,
it's ridiculosity. It was wrong.
Yeah, he's an idiot. Sorry for this one. Like, he's an idiot. This is that is just stand brain. You're right. It's just stand brain rhetoric. You went on Twitter and you copy pasted some tweets that you read. Like, where's the journalism? Where's the fact checking?
There's no journalism.
Where's
there's
the
no
sourcing?
Fact checking. There's no journalism.
Source? Don't have.
All right, on to part 9, the songs on her arms. So this is literally just like an ode to arm lyrics. This whole part is about arm lyrics, which I think is kind of cute.
I could have cheered for that if he was a good writer, but he's not a good writer, so it wasn't good.
I did like this line that he said, quote, "It was also a way of locating her and her fans in the wider story of pop music. They were all part of this tradition." I thought that was a nice thought and a nice addendum, but it's kind of ironic because he's not being part of the tradition right now.
You're not part of it.
He's not
You're not invited.
talking about any of the pop music that came before. He's talking about Morrissey.
And Duran.
Bruce Springsteen and Tupac. I'm not saying these aren't part of pop history and like music history. I'm saying they're not part of Taylor's personal history.
She's never uttered those words. These are not artists that she's like. Has she ever said Tupac? The word?
I don't know. I really don't think so. It would surprise me, but I don't think so. So, another thing that he says in this part is that Taylor is a fan first. As in, she's a music fan before she's a musician, which I actually think is a really good insight into her, and I think it's so true. And I think it's true for anybody who's like a creative or who does anything creatively. You are a fan before you started to create because it was your love of the thing and seeing other people do it that made you want to do it. So I liked that kind of diatribe, but this was another short chapter, and it's just kind of like a blurb in the overall book. He talks more about Duran Duran than he does about arm lyrics on the Speak Now tour, which if you think about it, is crazy. We could do, I mean, if we really picked it apart, we could do a series.
Madeline, we could sit here and do 3 hours on arm lyrics alone.
Yeah.
That's
alone.
it.
Yeah.
Alone. The fact that he can't spend more than 2 seconds on it, it's like you Googled things that Swifties do and you made chapters about it.
Speaking of Googling things that Swifties do, part 10, Enchanted. Probably one of the most disappointing parts of the book. The only thing that I had to say about this
I can see. What was your comment?
Zach and Rob have eerily similar tastes in favorite Taylor songs. So he loves Holy Ground. In fact, Holy Ground is the only song in the book that he admits was botched as a re-recording. He's right. And he's right.
You see?
You see? The truth always comes out eventually. Mm-hmm. And he also loves Enchanted. And I was like, who else do I know who has the... I was like,
has been to Taylor's house and likes here. Enchanted and Holy Ground. That's interesting.
There's like a pipeline, and it's like freaky.
I'm almost glad that he doesn't really get into the music very much because I hate his assessment of her music. He completely gets Speak Now wrong, and this is where my gripes get just personal because I'm like, you're not reading it right. But he says that Speak Now is, quote, conspicuously unedited and rambling. And I completely disagree because Speak Now does not give rambling or unedited. It's some of her sharpest and her most clear writing, which was entirely the point of the record. The reason why she wrote it by herself was to disprove that she couldn't write coherent songs to completion alone. Those songs are bulletproof and they're very clear. They are not rambling and they might be long, but they are not rambling. You want to see rambling? I show you Torture Post Department. That is not an insult. Rambling is, the levels, the layers that go on there. Speak Now is not. Also, he keeps saying he thinks it's really cute to do I'll Spin Forever. Like he misheard that lyric and he clearly thinks that it sounds better because he quotes it as an actual lyric from Enchanted. And it's I'll Spend Forever. I just think since I'm fact checking him, we should just be clear about that.
That silenced me. I didn't even pick that up. I thought it was just him saying like, I'll spin the record. I'll spin the song forever. He
suggests it earlier that he heard it as Spin Forever the first time earlier in the book. And then in the Enchanted passage, he quotes that part of the song and says, I'll spin forever, but doesn't follow that up to be like, that's not the real lyric. So I'm like,
what if... I don't have anything
Weirdo.
to say about that. That's just that's none of my business.
Another
Another baffling addition
moment
to the mountain of evidence that we are compiling here. So after that, we have part 11, every guitar string scar on her hand. This is about her and the acoustic guitar and how important her guitar is to her and how important she was to sales of the guitar. He cites Taylor as one of the reasons for the upkick of sales of acoustic guitars, and he goes into this thing about how, like, apparently there was a time where nobody's buying the acoustic guitar. Oh my god, guitars are going to go out of business, which is like crazy. It's one of those things that's like toothpicks. You can't. The guitar is never gonna
really. You can't quantify
bankrupt.
that.
But the CEO of Fender did corroborate this and say, "Oh yeah, after Taylor, we had like a big uptick in
specifically
sales,
acoustic
which
guitars."
Is awesome. Which is awesome. It's fucking cool, and I'm saying I love to give Taylor credit, even if she doesn't deserve it. I'm like, okay, yes, she is the sole reason that the acoustic guitars came back from the brink. I love it. I'm clapping.
Thank you
and I'm
for
cheering.
saving us. Well, I think, this and the arm lyric are like, if I was writing a book about Taylor, I could think of very interesting essays to write about the arm lyric and Taylor and the significance of her and her guitar. So this could have gone somewhere if it had actually bothered to do a little bit of research. Have you noticed that? This entire book is extremely light on research, on like inclusion of quotes, on any sort of like anything that requires more than a perfunctory Google search, because, we're not even doing the Google searches because there are mistakes here. But instead we're getting diary entries. Imagine if we had used our journalistic skills in this guitar essay and like contacted all the major guitar retailers and attempted to get sales data and like track that with Taylor's public appearances playing the guitar. Like, he could have made a substantiated argument for that or not found one. But that's the point of being a journalist, is to investigate these claims before you make them. So he also had to take it to the next level and say she invented the guitar and she's the only artist to ever play the guitar. And this is where his weird groveling to young girls becomes stupid, because by saying that Taylor was the first person ever to use her guitar as an armor and a shield, to command presence and authority by having one, he writes off all the women who preceded her in the pop space that were also known for playing their guitars. Avril Lavigne, Michelle Branch, heard of her? The compulsion to make her the queen of everything is really tiring, especially when her relationship to the guitar is an interesting one to examine. You know what we could talk about with Taylor and the guitar? Has her technical skill evolved over the years? A lot of musicians have said that Taylor's guitar is more of a decoration than an instrument. She doesn't really utilize it in its full capacity. That I don't agree, but that's interesting. You see, this is something that we could talk about in an essay about Taylor and her relationship to the guitar, but instead it's just Taylor invented the guitar.
Maybe she did. And again, it's okay for us to say that because we're the Swifties. Mm-hmm. We're literally Swifties.
We're not doing the authoritative book.
That's what we want to do. That's exactly. So, but like, this is again a Substack post, and I clap and I cheer. Mm-hmm. And I clap and I cheer. But referencing
it's
these,
an Instagram story.
People like Jack White and John Mayer, many people in the guitar sphere would still say John Mayer is one of the greatest living guitar players. And like that's just kind of like the tea. Even if I don't want it to be true, it is kind of true. Mm-hmm. Jack White is like a noted, like incredible musician. And it's not taking anything away from Taylor to say, I don't think Taylor in terms of guitar playing
playing
is
only.
On the same level as somebody guitar. Like Jack White. Right. I think that we need to reel the hero worship in a little bit, because yes, she did make girls want to get and play guitars and learn how to play the guitar. Nobody is ever going to take that away from her. The CEO of Fender said it happened. But what you can't do is say she is just as good at the guitar as Jack White. It's like, now
ridiculous.
Hold on. Nobody said that. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it. Jack White,
we don't need to say it. The point is not diluted by stressing that she's not the greatest at it, because the point of Taylor and her guitar is that it's symbolic. It's not her ability that draws people to her and her guitar.
Well, also, I think that like her not becoming like, I mean, she could theoretically just start doing like crazy guitar riffs, spitting. Like John Mayer. But it's like, I don't think that's what, that's not right. That's not what anybody is there for. You know what I'm there for? On the Red Tour, when she's flipping her hair, she's playing. Mm-hmm. That's what I like.
Oh, that's what I like.
I don't want to hear instrumental. Nope. I don't need that.
I'm cool with that. Capo on and do Forever and Always.
You go to the White Stripes reunion tour. You go see somebody else.
Not the Eras tour.
We don't need it at the Eras tour. We don't, and that's okay. Man, we talked about that for too long.
We did. Part
We're
12.
running out of time.
The
So part 12,
Archer.
The Archer. So this was in my notes. I just wrote it's about his mother passing away because like I was like I don't know how much I really want to get into it. So I was just like it's about how he listened to The Archer a lot after his mother passed away. You actually had some interesting things to say about it because I had nothing. So take it away.
Yes, I kind of spilled it off the top, which was like, I don't understand how when the only time he zooms in on a song is to talk about how he relates to something that the song doesn't really talk about. And I get that like projecting onto Taylor Swift songs is part of the Swiftie experience, but he's not being cognizant of that and saying that that's what's happening. He's like suggesting that that's what the song is about, which is confusing and also wrong, not to be disrespectful to his experience. But if this was like a memoir or some sort of like confessional take on Taylor, I would understand the inclusion of this anecdote here. But again, it makes no sense sequentially with what's going on. It has no relevance to Taylor being the 21st century pop star. It is just like a memory that he had of Taylor. And there's also a factual error here. He says that he did karaoke and he sang Taylor, a song from 2008.
A song
From 2008. Yeah, he also goes on to suggest that New Romantics is the only time that a bonus track has ever become a single. And you know what also was a bonus track that became a single? Ours. He knows nothing about this song. He knows nothing about, I don't think he's ever heard it before.
He's like, I sang it for karaoke. He's like, I don't even think you were in the room.
You're like, sing Ours. And he starts singing If This Was a Movie. You're like, what?
Yeah. What are you talking about?
Well, okay, so that's that on that.
So part 13. This is the chapter that silenced me the most.
Oh.
This chapter is... I'll be honest with you, this is when I started skimming because I literally didn't understand what this had to do with anything, let alone Taylor. So part 13, the bridge. 13 songs from Taylor's dreams. So he starts this chapter by saying, this book needs a bridge, obviously, or is it even about Taylor Swift? Because, Taylor loves bridges and her bridges are really popular in the fandom. Okay, so that's great. But then he just starts like listing songs that Taylor likes and describing them. Like, for example, Irreplaceable by Beyonce.
Songs that
what
she's
does
covered.
That have to do? Songs
Betty
that she's
Davis
covered,
has.
Songs that we know she likes.
When he suggested that Hot in Here by Nelly was a song that Taylor Swift could have written, recorded, and released, that silenced me. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to say. Are you setting her up? You're setting her up to say that she should be singing a Mary J. Blige song? You're setting her up. Although that one I kind of liked.
Well, I clapped and I cheered.
Yeah, that one I clapped for.
And I cheered. Listen, we were clapping. I did also like when he talked about You Don't Know Me by Leslie Gore. These were the parts of the book that I found interesting because, again, he does have a lot of music history knowledge.
That's a relevant connection. Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Song played for the EOAS tour about ownership, master recordings.
Yep.
That makes sense. Okay. That sequence, I understand.
And I thought it was so just like interesting. I didn't know any of that about Leslie Gore. I didn't know. And when he told the anecdote about how she went at when First Wives Club came out with Bette Midler and Diane Keaton. I actually love the First Wives Club. I've seen it like a million times. It is such a good fucking movie. And like that song is referenced in that movie. And it was like one of the first times since it had been popular that it was coming back in. And the anecdote about her standing outside the theater to see people coming out and singing her song from all those years ago. I was like, I'm about to jump off a fucking bridge. And like thinking about like, what if she knew, here I go. What if
there she goes? There she blows.
What if Leslie Gore knew how important this song is like to Taylor and like to the EOAS tour and like this like great celebration of here I go of like this, that, and the other thing. You know what I'm getting at, and
I know what you're getting at.
It was poignant and I enjoyed it, and that was something I think was an interesting part of the chapter. It was the only chapter that the only part of the chapter that made any damn sense.
He didn't make the starting line connection. Didn't clock that T. Didn't clock that T.
Right. So. She references the starting line 2 times on the Tortured Poets Department. Now we're at the starting line.
That goes over the expert's head.
In Fresh Out the Slammer. Okay, and that is probably a moment that will live on in Swiftie infamy. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. It's more clear on the Black Dog, but that's how the Fresh Out the Slammer, the starting line reference comes to. You're like, oh my God, she was referencing that fucking song. And he doesn't even know that. He doesn't know the song.
He doesn't know anything.
Rob Sheffield, sing Best of Me by the starting line. Sing it.
He can't. Also, there's another factual error. He talks about how Taylor spoke about You're So Vain in the Red Tour documentary. What are you talking about? What Red Tour documentary? Red Tour documentary. It is a 2-minute YouTube video. A 2-minute YouTube video documentary.
We can't make this up.
Literally can't make this up.
If there was a Red Tour documentary,
I would have watched that.
He wasn't questioning why he's never seen that before,
or why you can't get it on. Strange. I don't know, Netflix, not on Amazon Prime. Can't find it anywhere.
That's very, very interesting. So part 14, Red. My only note just being, what is your point?
What is your point? He says that Red is punk, and I said, prove it. I would like to see it.
I don't understand how it's punk. People are using that word however they want anymore.
Says stuff, including
it's
Taylor.
like when Taylor says the way that Travis like mentioned her in a podcast was metal as hell.
No, it
what
wasn't.
Does that mean? What do words mean?
I don't know what it means, but I know
words
it's not that.
Words have meanings. This is like when you said, this is like when you made that comment earlier about like art moves people. Words have meaning. Words have meanings. So you can't just make them mean whatever you want.
They do. They have meanings, and Rob Sheffield doesn't know them. Really, that's the issue. He suggests here that We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together is actually a song that she wrote out of kindness to her ex-boyfriend. Have you heard that song? Have you heard that song?
That was a really confusing comment. I didn't understand what he meant when he was saying that. Like,
because it doesn't make sense.
She's being nice to him.
He also just can't explain a reference. Like, he'll draw a parallel or a connection and make no justification for why he's doing it. And as a writer, your job is to like shepherd the reader through your argument. And he just spits random nonsense, speaking in tongues throughout this whole book. Here's a passage from his meditation on Red. Okay, this is what he has to say about Red. Other times, it sounds like all she's learned about maturity is that it's in her dictionary between Maserati and midnight breakfast act. She wants the electro fizzle of pop radio, but she wants to go toe-to-toe with whatever she heard in the car that morning. She goes full Billy Idol in Holy Ground, nicking the white wedding guitar hook for a song about dancing with herself. Sad, Beautiful, Tragic is Mazzy Swift, going for Hope Sandoval's exact tambourine sound. She takes my least favorite moment in the Steely Dan catalog, the treble whimper in Dirty Work, and rubs it in my face until I like it. What?
I don't know what he's talking about.
What
are you talking about? Mazzy Swift. Mazzy Swift?
What is that?
Look at yourself in the mirror, man.
Hopes you need to really take a moment and reflect on.
You need to go stand in the corner.
You need to give that advance back.
Think.
I think the book advance that you got for this should be distributed to a charity because
it's absolutely crazy.
Or put towards a journalism degree for you because this is just
something. This is just crazy. So part 15. There once was a girl known by everyone and no one, semicolon, Taylor's Codes. So this is when he opens the chapter by talking about how Taylor wanted to be a cop because she was really into CSI and like procedural drama shows. She wanted to be a detective. She wanted to be a detective. She did because she was really interested in mystery and solving riddles and how this all connected to her then becoming obsessed with Easter egging and doing the hidden messages in her songs. Hidden messages, by the way, that he needs to look into because can we return to the fact that the hidden message for Long Live is for you. Let's return to that because he doesn't even know that much. But then he goes from this Easter eggs, she wants to be a detective, she would have been a detective in another life, to all of a sudden, Harry Styles.
It's crazy. I felt like I was on crack reading this. Like I could not follow one sentence, the thought process between one to the other.
It was crazy. So this is one of the quotes. Haler is a unique case of two brilliant pop brains. First of all, there's only one brilliant pop brain in the room.
Yes, let's
don't start.
Don't do that.
Start.
Don't equate them.
Start.
Don't do that.
So, two brilliant pop brains, allegedly, who keep tossing these paper airplanes back and forth for years because it's a creative goldmine. And he also goes on to say, quote, they're still at it. You guys, I don't think anybody's told him that some of the songs on Folk Levermore have been revealed to be about Maddie Healy.
He doesn't know that.
I think
he doesn't know
Maroon is about Harry Styles.
He doesn't know Question is not about Harry Styles.
We need to help him.
Well, this is the thing. I'm the most ardent Haler, and even I was like, "This is crazy. It's crazy."
He also said that he thinks Daylight by Taylor Swift could be about Harry because Harry also has a song called Daylight.
Well,
connections where there are none.
Also kind of suggests that the song Harry wrote, Daylight, is about Taylor. And to that I say, do you realize that you're accusing Taylor Swift of doing cocaine? Because the opening lines of that song are, I'm on the roof, you're in your airplane seat, I was nose bleeding, looking for life out there, reading your horoscope, you were just doing cocaine in my kitchen, you never listen, I hope you're missing me now.
Wow, those lyrics read out loud like that are so goddamn bad. Jesus Christ.
Brilliant pop brains. Brilliant pop brains.
He suggests, now this is crazy. He says that Treacherous could be about Harry Styles because Harry Styles got a temper trap tattoo. Now, many of you will remember Temper Trap, the song specifically that Harry got a tattoo of was Sweet Disposition. And yes, you will recall that the hidden message for, I think, was it State of Grace? That it's Sweet Disposition?
Or Treacherous, one of them, yeah.
One of the two. So it's Jake Gyllenhaal's favorite song. That was Jake Gyllenhaal's favorite song.
Did you know that? You didn't know that.
Did you know that?
You didn't know that.
Did you know that?
He says that Taylor and Harry are twin fire signs for blue eyes. And I said, shut your filthy mouth. Put a bar of soap in that gob of yours because you have no idea, no scruples in your head. You're trying to suggest that State of Grace is about Harry Styles. Someone hasn't done the timeline. Someone hasn't done the timeline. I can't.
Over my dead body. State of Grace will never, ever, ever. I mean, this is
also, you want to hear
lore.
something insane? Harry Styles also isn't a fire sign. He's an Aquarius.
Let's talk about that. I mean, let's bring that up. I was under the impression also that he had green eyes, sir.
We don't like to do fact checking.
Your eyes so green. Who wrote that?
You see how you prod the argument for 1 second and it all comes tumbling
It's a house of
down.
Cards. It's a house of cards. And you know what? I'm saying it again. A 60-year-old grown straight man Hailerizing, we need to open
mental
the schools.
Hospital.
We need
the
to
schools
open the
can't
schools.
help him. Mental hospital.
And
soon,
he even
straight
does
jacket 5150 to the
in
hospital.
this part. He does the lyric reference, but this time he does a One Direction lyric reference, and it's a reference to the song "Perfect," which, to be fair, was theorized
that is about
at the time.
Taylor.
Could have been about Taylor, and frankly, it's a One Direction song that I've spun, my fair share of.
That's one of the better ones.
Song. It's one of the better One Direction songs, and I spin it. However, it was highway. It was wrong. It was highway robbery. I didn't want to read a One Direction lyric in my.
I didn't. Also, he suggests that Harry Styles wrote a song about a girl called Olivia because Taylor Swift has a cat called Olivia. You see how that works? I don't see it.
I don't see how that works. You see how that works?
I think we realized that you don't need to make books. You need to make TikToks because there's a huge community out there for you.
Oh, they're out there for you. Oh, they're waiting. They're waiting for the Rob Sheffield TikToks. I bet he could be big on TikTok.
Well,
I think he could.
We'll see about that.
Okay, so part 16, 1989. What do you think this chapter opens with? Him bragging about how he went to her house.
For security reasons.
Get it. For security reasons?
He says that every time he mentions.
So then this is also the part of the book where he's like sitting on the couch and he's like, I wonder if this is where Selena Gomez sits. Oh my God, maybe this is where Lena Dunham sits. Oh my God, this is where Gigi Hadid sits. And it's like, I wouldn't have even thought that.
You're a 50-year-old man also. You're a 50-year-old man.
Why are you thinking about Selena Gomez? Did Selena Gomez sit where I'm sitting right now?
Why are you thinking that?
Why do you
it's
care?
Weird.
I thought you were like a serious music journalist.
Oh my God, Selena! I can't. I really, really can't. Also, there is an immediate lyric and factual error from his favorite song. He says that this is his favorite song. That was before she got to the line about queer kids escaping to the city where she sings girls and girls and boys and boys.
It's flip it and reverse it, Robert.
Literally.
Robert.
Put the thing down, flip it and reverse it.
Flip it and reverse it. Are you out of your goddamn mind?
He's out of his mind. How does anyone not see these things?
It's because these people who are editing it don't give a
They don't know. They're
They don't
you
give
know
a
what?
hoot.
They're trusting that Rob Sheffield knows
He
his
knows
shit.
everything.
And he
right.
doesn't. He doesn't. He
doesn't.
doesn't know anything. He's also like writing his own history of Taylor's career, making up his own story of whatever, because his general interpretation of the consensus around Taylor at any given moment is wrong, and he'll change it in the book to like alter whatever insipid point he wants to make. So what he wanted to say about 1989 was that no one ever expected it to be, you know, greatest album ever made, cultural reset. So he made up lies about the consensus about Red. So his version of why 1989 exists. She did not want to be Taylor Swift anymore. It was pure self-sabotage. No one was asking for this. After Red, the world was hoping for Red 2, 50 Shades Redder, Red 3, Revenge of the Scarf, or Red 5, Maple Latte Massacre. Nobody sane would have advised her, you know what you should do next? Make an album that sounds nothing like Red, but exactly like Erasure or the Pet Shop Boys. Except all the number one hits and the big moments from Red that took her into a new stratosphere of momentum were what? They were pop songs, right? Which is what 1989 ended up being. He goes on, nothing about 1989 made sense. Red was a formula she could have milked forever. The country pop rock mix that so many artists had spent worthy careers trying to reach, and she was ditching it now. The songs were great. They were Swift songs, but each one made it harder to comprehend why she was depeshing her entire mode. There was something wistful about hearing it. I missed her already, but there was a new girl she wanted to be. This is completely detached from the critical consensus of what Red was when it actually came out. The overwhelming response, and you're a critic, you should know that, was shit or get off the pot with pop music, Taylor Swift. You need to pick one lane. It can't be country and it can't be pop. The country music people were complaining. They were saying, why is she getting nominated for country awards? She's a pop star, clearly. She wants to be a pop star. She should just go and do that. That was the resounding critique. She even said sonic cohesion was what she went for with 1989 because she was lambasted for chasing this country pop rock mix that Rob says she could have done forever.
You know what this diatribe has been reminding me of like the whole time? Her sister was a witch. And what was her sister? A princess. The Wicked Witch of the East, bro. Like, that's literally the tone and the energy that is being given to this.
I have to. Who else is going to do it? Who else is sitting here fact-checking this numbskull?
And nobody. Again, they think that he's the ultimate source. Did they not know? What did they really think was going to happen when the book landed on your desk? I want to know. Do they think we don't know more than he does?
They must really underestimate the intelligence of a Swiftie. I can't blame them, but come on. There are smart ones.
But there are some of us out there that know what's going on, and I'm proud of us. You and me.
We know the time of day, at least.
We do, at least. I mean, at least
we know what year a song came out.
Okay, so part 17 is entitled The Word Nice. So this chapter is about how often she uses the word nice, and he posits it like people don't really use the word nice. And I was like, well,
yes,
I think that they do.
No, they do.
And
I use that word all the time.
I had to confess, I was like, I don't think I've ever really thought about how often she uses the word nice. And I was like, maybe that's because it's not that strange of a word to use, but he does think about her use of the word nice and how often she uses the word nice in a way that I have to report is just not that serious, bro. So this is his quote. This is a direct quote from the book. Does Taylor keep getting pulled back to nice because it embodies these fucked up gender cliches? Is it the demand for female niceness, the way nice divides and defines women? Is she reclaiming a word scorned for its girliness, fighting to liberate the twee, or just making the best of a trite platitude? It's a trinket of a word, a cheap piece of tinsel, yet she pins it to her lapel and wears it proudly.
Oh, I lost it at fighting to liberate the twee.
Here's the thing. Here's that's like honestly the truth.
Me when I wear a bow, I'm fighting to liberate the twee.
I think that Taylor just likes the word nice. And I think that I understand what he means in saying that women are way more expected to be nice than men are. Like, that's true. But that doesn't make the word nice a gendered word.
Right.
Like that, I think we're losing the meaning of words again. You see how it's happening?
Something that happens
you see
a lot
how,
to Rob.
You know, just like red's not punk, the
yeah.
word nice isn't inherently gendered. And I don't think that Taylor using it, especially not the way that she uses it, is her reclaiming. It's not like on slut.
I polish
Nobody,
up real
she's
nice.
not
Is not a
reclaiming
good,
the word nice.
not a
That's
good,
not reality,
no.
Robert. You know, I'm telling you that. I'm informing you. And then to add insult to injury, he goes on this whole rant and rave about how nice is a gendered word. And then he says the other person that he chooses to reference as having fallen to this fate, just like Taylor, Bruce Springsteen. The man? The boss?
Exactly. This is the
like,
thing.
wait a second.
This is the thing.
It's like, wait, is it gendered or is it not? Because the last time I checked, Bruce Springsteen is the all-American man. So what are we talking about?
I'd be a fearless leader.
But I did think that what he said about Bruce Springsteen's legacy and like the word nice as associated with him was particularly interesting in terms of like fame. So he says, when a star is obscenely wealthy in the currency of nice, they might wonder, like Bruce, is this really me? Am I this icon? Would I exist without it? Am I really a kind, loving, honest person? Or am I just nice? Could I leave the prison of nice behind me, just go free for just one day?
Well,
and
I
think
Taylor has answered that question already, so that's why it's kind of an immaterial thing. Like, she talked about this in Miss Americana, about like the nice girl, the good girl, like how she was really consciously trying to leave that behind.
What I'm saying is like not necessarily about the nice thing. It's about the image that you project in general. Like the image, your legacy as a star. When your legacy becomes bigger than who you actually are, like what happened to Bruce Springsteen, it's like, am I even really this person that people think that I am? Or is this just like what people see? Can I get away from this? Am I ever not going to be that person anymore? So it's not really so much about the word nice. It's more about like the fame as a whole thing and like what people see you as. That's how what I thought was interesting about it.
I think you're being too generous with him. I think you're being too generous with him.
I mean, it's something that
Your hopeful brain.
The thing is, he doesn't really say any of the things that I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm putting the words in his mouth.
You're helping him out here.
I pulled that out of the review on my own.
That's nice.
Well, that's nice. Okay, so part 18, New Romantics. So this is about how he loves Duran Duran.
It's not about New Romantics, in case you were wondering. New Romantics.
So he says this like really embarrassing thing at the top of the chapter, which is that so many friends checked in on me the week the song was released to see how I was recovering. Can you get real?
Your other 60-year-old friends are texting you to see if you're okay after you heard a Taylor Swift song. My friends don't do that.
No, my friends
don't
do that. And I'm the Swiftologist. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah, they don't care.
Are you done listening to the album yet? When are we gonna hang out? It's like,
do you mean Swifties on Twitter? Is that friends? Yeah. Is that who that is? So, I mean, this whole chapter is really emblematic of something he does a lot. He uses Taylor as a jumping off point to talk at length about artists no one, the readers, let alone the readers of this book, will care about in this context. He is much more poetic and speaks more at length about other people as artists than the artist he is here to discuss. He literally, like, if you think about it, when has he mentioned any of her collaborators? Nathan Chapman got like one line. Max Martin was glossed over. Here, Jack Antonoff enters the picture and gets blown away with the wind. It's like, you aren't talking about her music. You're talking about your personal experience with Duran Duran, and I don't fucking care.
It kind of felt like, just because I know that he's written a book about Duran Duran and I know he's like a mega stan because he's admitted it a million times, it's kind of felt like padding a paper for school with another paper you wrote for another class. Like, that's what it was kind of giving. Like, I don't really have anything else to say. But it's like, I understand it. Like, oh, this was like a reference to 80s. It's 1989.
But that's a paragraph.
So, yeah.
That's a paragraph. And it's like, but that's
we
not
don't
a chapter.
We don't need all this. The only part that I liked is when he gagged Duran Duran, when they laughed in his face over going to see Taylor. And one of the members said, oh, you must have been the only guy there. And Rob Sheffield was like, well, I'm more than used to that from going to your shows. Gag it.
He did gag them.
Gagged them and with ease. Mm-hmm. And say it again, louder.
Clap. I'll give you one clap. Drop.
Cunty.
One clap.
All right, so part 19, the villain era. This chapter was really, really difficult for me to read. It really pissed me off. I thought it was
Yeah.
estupido. I
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I'll tell you the truth, I started skimming. I remember it being kind of long and me being like, let's wrap this
It was very
up. Like,
long and
I
very
know all of
rambling.
this. I know all of this. So I did think it was interesting how he framed because this is the villain era chapter. It's all about how she became, it's literally the evolution of a snake.
Mm.
I mean,
If he
hello.
wishes. He
So he
wishes.
talks about the Kanye West incident and incidents, I should say, plural. He gets into that quite a bit, a little bit too much, if you're asking me. I just kind of feel like I think
We've
there
been
needs to
new.
be a little bit of a divorce of him from the narrative. I like mentioning it is fine, but it's like how much he talked about it was kind of like in a book about her. I just kind of felt like that's
Boring.
not the move anymore. But he did say a couple of interesting things. So he said everything Taylor did was defined in terms of Kanye West and his problems with her. He was the most important relationship in her life as far as the public was concerned. Taylor's failure to get in his good graces was more than a career coffin. It was proof of her character flaws. And it's easy to forget, but there was a time when Kanye West was the decider of
Greatest
what was
artist
cool.
alive. That's
He
true.
was considered to be one of the greatest minds in music. And honestly, he was for a time one of
But would
the
I say everything Taylor did was defined in terms of Kanye West and his problems with her? I wouldn't say that.
No, I think that's painting with a really broad brush. And I
For
think
that
that's
moment,
using
for 6 months,
dramatic
maybe.
dramatic language to make a point, which is like you kind of want to, I feel, avoid using such broad words. I think when you're writing a book like this, I mean, not to, get my editor's pen out.
Oh, get it
But
out.
I do think that that was a little bit exaggeration. I understood what he meant, but I think most people weren't thinking of Taylor in relation to Kanye West even like a year later. You know what I
No.
mean? Like she had
And
so many things going on
he was
that
drawing like weird connections between things as well because like he talked a lot about the VMAs obviously and then talked again about getting canceled by Kim. And those things are different. And what's different about it is that Taylor has a little bit of culpability in Snakegate, and everybody is trying to like revise that from the narrative. The way that she was operating in public, the opportunistic feminism, the girl bossery of it all. Like she was not a totally 100% innocent victim in that scenario. That doesn't diminish what she's experienced, but it adds a layer of complexity and reality to the scenario. But of course, he's not interested in doing that at all. He also goes on this weird rant where he talks about how Beyonce was erased from the story of the VMAs and how it was like
yes.
really
Yep.
her who was wronged by Kanye and nobody remembers her winning a VMA. Like everybody remembers Taylor. And it's like, but he literally says Beyonce was erased from the story. Her gesture didn't go viral or inspire memes. And it's like, what internet were you on? Her face is the meme.
Oh my
The meme
god,
of
it's
her, hello? I can do it.
everybody remembers.
We all
Oh,
remember where we
Kanye!
were.
I could read her.
Literally.
Oh, Kanye! It's like, stop!
Literally. So what are you talking about? And what point does that serve to make your point elsewhere? What really got me along was where he presented a timeline deliberately wrong to make Taylor look better, which is another reason why bias impacts objectivity. It lets you make stuff up. All right, so this is how he describes the incident. Kanye dropped Famous in February 2016 out of the blue with the line, "I feel like me and Taylor might still have sex. Why? I made that bitch famous." The video depicted him having sex with her. It had prosthetic naked lookalikes of celebrities, but Swift was the only one targeted sexually. This wasn't a revival of any earlier beef. This was something new. This time, though, everyone was on his side. A few weeks later, when she won a Grammy for 1989, she spoke about misogyny in the music business, speaking directly to all the young women out there. Eyes rolled at her speech. "There are going to be people along the way," she warned, "who will try to undercut your success, blah, blah, blah. The impossibility of this night not being about a man. She was the only one who didn't get it." And now, here's the thing. He has the timeline completely wrong. The Famous video didn't come out until June. The song and the Grammys happened in February. That is a telling revision because it makes Taylor's outrage about the song, which was disproportionate to what had gone on. As we know, she didn't handle herself perfectly in that scenario. It made her outrage look a lot more justified when it's immediately about the revenge porn. You can't argue with it. You can't pick a hole in it because there's a revenge porn element to it, and he's wrong for that. And that's totally completely true, but that's just not how it happened. And he's making something up. And I really hate that. I hate the revisionist history. It's really irritating to me.
Right. And it's like, the thing about Taylor's speech at that award show is that nothing she said was really wrong. It was just annoying. That's it. And it's like, I don't really think anybody is reflecting on that now today and going, what, unless you're like a hater, obviously, then, or you're a misogynist, in which case, yes, well, of course you are. But like the normal person is like, yeah, remember when Kanye West was really mean? You know what I mean? Like this, you don't need to do all this.
No, you don't need
fakery.
to rewrite history.
No.
It's there for anyone to see. And again, these are Googleable facts. So it shocks me that we are just getting these things wrong. A good point he made was about the election drama. Nobody was asking how Justin Bieber or Justin Timberlake voted. Nobody wondered about Drake or the Jonas Brothers. Men had the option of neutrality if they chose. That was very interesting to me.
Very, very interesting. Yeah. Some freaky stuff going on. So part 20 is reputation. This is, you'd think I would have more to say about this. This is when I was fading. I was reading it, flip. I was looking specifically for like quotes to pull. Didn't find anything particularly interesting. You found a couple of interesting things. I completely missed him saying that, look what you made me do. Well,
you were skimming. Bad. I'm glad you were, because you would have been upset. He said it over and over again. He said the awful lead single, okay, first of all, the first single, Look What You Made Me Do, was not just her worst single to date. Worst single to date. To this day, Look What You Made Me Do is her worst single to date, but a song that made it reasonable for people to wonder if this was the end of the line. That's an insane thing to say to you.
Nobody was wondering if it was the end of the line. Even if people didn't like it, they were
saying, like, what's coming next?
Right.
They were like, what the hell is she going to do now?
She's setting herself up. Okay, let's see what she's cooking. Because if nothing else, it was interesting. It made people go, what the hell?
It's also just not that bad of a song. What are you talking about?
He didn't mention the music video much at all, did he?
Only to talk about how she's wearing a Junior Jewel shirt that doesn't say Carly Kloss on it. That's his takeaway from the Look What You Made Me Do music video. He says a huge digression about Carly Kloss and about how they're not friends anymore, and about how when she was at the EOAS tour, she was sitting in the bleachers and how ironic that was, and how the girl squad is over. Did we talk about Reputation? No. That has no. What does this have to do with Reputation?
No, we didn't talk about the album or the music at all. We didn't talk about, I mean, he kind of got into the Sonics like a little bit. I remember him talking about like, it was, when he did like the same thing with Red, the Mazzy Swift, and she was pulling from, this, that, and the other thing. And it's just like, okay, but what was the album?
He can't answer.
Bueller, can anybody answer this question? Like,
he can't answer.
What was the album? What does it represent? Like, how did we get to this point? You spent pages on pages talking about how Carly Kloss went to the EOAS tour and left early, but you don't have anything to say about the breadth of the work, Reputation, one of her most important albums, one of the most important albums in the canon. This is all you have?
The last one with Big Machine. Hello? You don't want to talk about that?
That wasn't really mentioned much at all.
Then he goes into, it's part 21. We're doing Taylor's version. And this silenced me.
This part, I was really surprised to hear him admit that even one of the re-records was botched. And it's like, I get the sense that he knows. He has to know. Robert, for somebody who's been listening to music for as long as you have, and has been writing about music for as long as you have.
Who's such a dork.
More of them are botched, but it's like Holy Ground is one that he can't let go because it really is that bad. I respect it, but it's like you could admit more. And I think even when he's talking about like, oh, they're so great, what he specifically says is great only is that the vocals are so much more improved, which is like pretty much the only thing that nobody can argue with. It's a given. It's a given. Yeah, the vocals are improved because now she's been singing for so long and she's, she took, lessons and this, that, and the other thing. And she's learned how to really sing better in a way that she just like wasn't taking those notes yet when she was recording Fearless. So that's really the only thing that you can say that's positive. And it's the only thing he says that is positive. Because then he just starts talking about how Holy Ground is botched.
And well, like, to that I'm saying speak on it. I'm saying speak on it, but we need to get into Style TV. We need to get into You Belong With Me. We need to get into all of the botched songs. He also takes pains to be like, the best vault song ever was You All Over Me. And it was a secret that nobody knew about. Not if you were us. Not if you were a real fan in the real fandom. It was a
secret that nobody knew about.
It was a secret that nobody knew. Mm-hmm. No, I had heard that song. I knew the lyrics to that song before it even came out.
Got burned.
Like
we were there.
we have been knowing this for a while. And also,
Yeah.
he said that 1989 has the best vault tracks. And I was like, well, I don't
I
know about that.
mean, in the sense that
the hit rate is higher, but you're going to ignore the red vault. But to me, the most annoying thing that he did was so this is the one part of the book where he does attempt to deliver some criticism. And the criticism that he wants to deliver is about Taylor changing the lyric in Better Than Revenge. So he does this whole song and dance about, is it okay? Is it not okay? Blah, blah, blah. He says, there's the sense that the song is a scene in the melodramatic inner life of an extremely unlikable narrator. I found her likable. A petty teen narcissist, a queen to some. And making fun of this narrator is the whole point of the song. That's actually not the point of the song.
I didn't understand that.
That's not the point of the song. That's a revisionist glare at the song.
No,
the song is
point
about
of the
being
song
a
was
girl.
To say, whore.
Fuck you, Camila Bell. Yeah, it was to say, fuck you for stealing my man. You're a slut. That was the point. And everybody clapped and cheered. But you can't clap and cheer for that because you're a 6-year-old man. But even when he tries to deliver a mild critique, because his argument is that it was wrong for her to do that, he's very upset about it. He says that, she is entitled to do it because you can't begrudge a songwriter who changes their mind about a song that means something to them. Then why did you go on this whole rant about how it was wrong and how it was bad if it's totally fine? What's the point?
I did think it was interesting how I think the most severe thing he says in the book is that the lyric is bad. He says it's a bad lyric, and he call it trite or something like that. Mm-hmm. And the moth to the flame metaphor is bad, and it's like, how, if you're gonna change the lyric, then you could at least change it to something good. I was like really surprised that he was like really taking a stand on this. Well, but then he doesn't ultimately take the stand, and he walks it all back.
And then he walks it all back. He goes on at the end of the Taylor's Version project to be like, the big question is why? What possessed us? By the way, you're the one that's supposed to be answering this question, not asking us. What possessed her to put so much labor and time into this? What does it mean for her to go back and revisit these stories? What does it say about her lifelong project of growth and evolution? And it's like, yes, it is about her unwavering commitment to creative autonomy, but it's also about money. It's about money and power, things that are very essential to understanding who Taylor Swift is as a public figure, especially as the redesigner of 21st century pop. And if you knew that, but do we?
We're not supposed to say that. We're not allowed to say that in the Rob Sheffield
book. Now we said it.
But now we said it.
We can't.
So, part 22 is called Cruel Summer, and it's about Cruel Summer. It's pretty much just about how the hit that was never supposed to be a hit, it's a song and dance that everybody knows. Mm-hmm. Truly don't understand why. The individual song chapters in this book are really baffling because
they're the worst ones.
I understand All Too Well getting its own chapter. As a Swiftie, I understand Enchanted getting its own chapter. Not that it was good. Cruel Summer getting its own chapter. It's like,
why
okay,
doesn't
so we're
the
just doing anything.
Tour have a chapter, but Cruel Summer does?
Why doesn't Tortured Poets have its own chapter?
Well,
let's talk about that.
Apparently Tortured Poets came out too close to the publication of the book, so we have to give him a little credit for that. The book was like done because it takes a while, so he could only go in and add a few things.
In the little lines about Olivia Rodrigo down bad. You couldn't have tapped in, considering how long these chapters are. I think we could have given it a couple of paragraphs.
500 more words.
Girls, get up on your good foot. But nonetheless, so the Cruel Summer, there's a part about this, and it's mostly about like, it was the song of the summer. It was a song that wasn't supposed to be a hit. It's the hit that never happened. And he starts talking about Taylor's fascination with windows. And it's like, I kind of, when we're talking about like somebody who has a body of work like Taylor, who's a songwriter like Taylor, sometimes these like connections and like focusing in on like when she does kind of talk about the window a lot. Honestly, it's really not that complex an idea or like that fascinating of a thing. This is what he says about it. She's seduced by the window more than by anything on either side of it. She sings, I don't want to keep secrets just to keep you, but she's drawn to thresholds, gates, liminal spaces, any portal to a forbidden place. Windows are for tapping on, tossing pebbles, hiding in the curtains. I think, as somebody who's been listening to her for a long time and like knows how she thinks and like knows how her life was, I think she's so fascinated by this idea of a window because she has never climbed in or out of a window a day in her fucking life.
Not once.
That is why she has never
had to.
And it has never been done to her. The garden gate, well, sure, that's a real thing that existed.
Why not?
But the window, she's not climbing out of the Tribeca window.
I look in people's windows.
Nobody's tossing pebbles at her window. It's never happened. It's like just a really easy romance novel, movie image. So it's not all that deep. I mean, it's just not all that deep. But something else that he said in this chapter about lovers specifically, he says, quote, "It's the only time she set out to make an album she knew everyone would like."
So why did
And
everyone
I
hate
kind
it?
of, right. And I kind of sat with that and I was like, I've never, ever, ever really thought that about Lover. It wasn't that she was trying to make an album everyone would like. It was that she was trying to make an album that was a complete 180. She
And
was
also
trying
an
to
album
do
that
a
people couldn't
reversion.
ignore. That was also
Exactly.
the point
She
of
was
it.
trying
It
to
was
make
a
it
splash.
huge and massive. No,
Mm-hmm.
I'm making a better album.
Oh,
And that turned into well, I'm going to make a gigantic pop record that everybody's going to say, wow, but nobody said wow.
no one
Also,
said
he pointed
wow.
out that Lover was her Saturn's Return record, and I never picked up on that before. That kind of silenced me, and you know what? It kind of explains a lot.
Well, your Saturn's
Except
return
that-
actually can be a 3-year period of time. I also looked that up and was like, this can't be. So it could be that, or it could be also anything that came after that between the ages of, I think it's 20, 29 and 31. So we can get Folklore and Evermore in there if we want to change that narrative,
well,
which we can. Rob's doing it. So why don't we?
Well, why don't we? We can say anything we want, can't we? And that's on period.
This is the part of the book that drove me crazy because it was more revisionist history. Part 23, the lead single. He has a lot of feelings about her lead singles. He says, why does she like to mess with fans' minds in this way? She just does. The most quintessential Taylor lead single is Me from Lover. And not just because it's terrible, though that helps. It can't stop showing off how terrible it is. In a very specific Taylor lead single way. Keep in mind, the first song Swift debuts from a new album is always an outlier. It's a big thematic statement addressing her public image. It talks about the celebrity Taylor rather than the personal one. Innocent from Speak Now, not a single, but the first one she introduced at the 2010 VMAs. Mine was out. Mine was out. Mine had been out. Mine was a single. It leaked. It had also been performed on television. Mine was out. Innocent was not the song that was debuted from Speak Now to the world. So your theory is wrong. But also, this is not always true. Is Love Story addressing Taylor as a celebrity? Is Mine? No. We Are Never? Kind of. I mean, they're not all these bait and switches. He says that these songs like fundamentally are incredibly different to what you hear on the album. Is We Are Never that different from Red?
No. We Are
Is
Never
Shake It Off
actually like
it
no.
is pretty emblematic of what's on it. Is
Yeah.
Shake It Off different from 1989? No.
Is Cardigan different from what's on Folklore? I mean, let's have this conversation. I think he's this whole thing is all, in my opinion, just to fiercely argue that she wasn't wrong to release Me as a lead single.
It was part of her strategy. It wasn't. It was a flop that didn't work. And the reason why you won't say that is because you are scared to deliver any criticism of Taylor whatsoever. He says, he goes on to say that because it's the most quintessential Taylor Swift lead single of all time, it hits all the tropes. Every Taylor lead single is required to have a spoken word moment. Spelling is Fun joins the tradition of, I mean, this is exhausting. The old Taylor can't come to the phone right now, and the fellow over there with the hella good hair. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's not allowed in. It's not allowed in. It was also edited out. It was edited out. Taylor herself has said, I flopped on that. And you still are out here trying to admit it into a canon of iconery, and you can't.
Well, what's wrong with saying, I think even Taylor knows it was an aberration.
She knows.
Man. And it's fine to say
glitch.
that. I mean, has your precious Duran never made a bad song? Are you really going to say that too? Look me in my eyes.
And then it's,
what
look
about
what
your
you made me do
precious
sucks.
Morrissey?
It's in the same breath, look what you made me do is terrible. And it's like, you really, tastelessness. Part 24 is called I'm Not Asleep, My Mind is Alive. As soon as I saw the title for this, I was like, enough. And there are, again, factual inaccuracies. He keeps talking about Lover. He says fans gnashed their teeth over the lead single Me, but a week later she dropped The Archer and then Lover. Two different sides of her music. Have you ever heard of a song called You Need to Calm Down? Have you ever heard of that song?
We are completely missing probably the reason that fans were gnashing their teeth is because we got Me, and then months later we got You Need to Calm Down.
But in his mind,
over.
we got Me and everybody was sad, and then we got The Archer and everybody was happy and cheering again.
That didn't happen.
Is not what happened. Me came out in April, The Archer came out in July, and You Need to Calm Down came out in June. So stop telling lies. I also don't think that he really is obsessively comparing her to Prince at this point. And I'm like, I just don't think that's a one-to-one comparison the way that you make it to be.
It's not. It's not.
He also says that Lover deserved a Grammy. I'm like
it confounds me. I think saying that Lover deserves a Grammy, like of all the things that he's said, and if you want to say I love Cruel Summer, maybe Cruel Summer should have gotten a Grammy. Speak on it, Queen. If you want to say I really love, there's some parts of Lover I really love, go with it. Lover deserved a Grammy.
When she
now, even in the darkest hour, I have never uttered those words.
I've never thought that. It's never occurred to me. That's not part of my reality.
I've never uttered those words. That's not part of my narrative, and I don't want it to be. No.
And then we get to part 25. After this, I dropped off, to be honest. I stopped paying attention. I stopped taking notes. There is one final nugget that I thought was okay. He's talking about folklore. He says it's the one that impressed people who didn't like her, and he went back to not liking her later. The writer Sean Ho has defined the concept of the Nebrasteric, where a divisive artist makes an album that even skeptics can admire. It's such an outlier in the catalog, it appeals to non-fans. And the classic example is Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska. He says that is folklore for Taylor Swift, and I agree.
And I'm saying period. And I think that that's like a good Bruce Springsteen being like one of his like pillars to keep going back to. I get it. It's an artist that you know a lot about, and like you know a lot about music history, but it's like, how come you're so, if I can speak, you're so interested in this artist who is like one of the most feminine artists who writes about the most feminine things on the face of the planet, but you didn't have any interest in Avril. You didn't have any interest in Michelle
Not even
Branch.
interest,
You
familiarity
didn't have interest
with.
In No Doubt.
It's
no
it's
Gwen
not
Stefani.
even a passing knowledge of. And when we speak about Olivia Rodrigo, the direct descendant of Taylor Swift, like someone you theoretically should like, if this is your kind of thing, you are slandering and maligning her. I mean...
And even the stuff he says about Phoebe Bridgers, I feel like, is only things that she said about Taylor. And it's like, I get where it's a book about Taylor, but like, you want to talk about Phoebe, give me some direct examples of how Phoebe has been a scholar of Taylor Swift. How is she?
But he doesn't substantiate any point. Not a single point is substantiated. No. So why would he?
And it's just like there's a startling lack of other female artists mentioned in this book other than Taylor.
And a huge plethora of men referenced and compared to, talked at almost, I would say, it's at least 50% about men, this book.
And I think that is in and of itself telling. And I think that says it all. And I still will never get over it. I didn't even mention the part where he said, there's a part in the Godfather. There's a part in the Godfather part 2 that always reminds me of Taylor. And it's like, what?
Why are you just thinking about her all the time?
Why don't you reference Titanic? Like, why are you referencing the Godfather part 2?
And this is why I remember when this came out, I was like, a man shouldn't write the first tell-all book about Taylor. It just shouldn't be. This is exactly why. Because why is the name Morrissey coming up? It shouldn't be.
That really stopped me in my tracks. And it's like, you can't just say that every songwriter is exactly like every other songwriter.
Because they have at one point done something similar. That's not what a comparison is. And also your comparisons need to like have some substantiated evidence. And he is really excited to talk about male artists, but he's not so good at explaining why they are directly relatable to Taylor Swift's art.
Because they're not.
No.
That's the T.
You look, you prod, it falls apart.
And that's really the crux of the issue. And
I give it a 1-star review. I give it 1 star.
Well, you want to see something really depressing? So I'm cataloging everything because of my tabs. So I'm cataloging all of the albums that I'm listening to and this year and everything. And for books, this is what I have. You see this? Look at this. Heartbreak is a National Anthem by Rob Sheffield. That's how I started my 2025, reading journey. That's not right.
No, it's
not right.
Because this wasn't reading. It was like, I was so irritated the entire time. And also, I mean, again, let's just stress, bad writer. The writing is bad at several points. It's uninspired. It's lazy. It relies so much on Taylor Swift. Like, it relies on her song titles. It relies on her lyrics in a way that's not interesting because it's not discovering them. It's just repeating them. Like, this is some shocking
I also
work.
think it also doesn't really add anything into the public conversation about Taylor that's happening right now.
Zero.
You know what I mean?
Nothing.
It doesn't add anything new. It's not a new
immaterial.
perspective. It's just a book. It's just, and I said this to somebody who made a comment to me on Twitter when I said I read it and I wouldn't recommend it. She was like, "Oh no, I was gonna buy it," and I was like, the thing is, I don't see any reason for why this exists other than he knew it would sell. That's it.
It's a cash grab. He rushed it out to get to be the first one out. And you can really tell in the quality of this work. It is poor writing. And I've read some of his writing before. I don't think he's a good writer in general, but I've read better writing from him than is in this book.
Yeah. And that's on
So,
period.
Rob Sheffield, I hope you have a good day and that you do some soul searching and just figure out why you are the way that you are.
No further comments.
And don't come to the Snares tour, but anyone else can come to the Snares tour, evolutionofsnake.com for tickets.